We're going to convene the meeting at 6:01, and we will start as usual with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. I will start with a motion to have John participate electronically.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have quiet from the public, please? So John is passed to participate remotely because we have a remote member. Just a reminder that all of our votes will need to be done by roll call tonight. What I'm going to do for tonight, just to let the public know, is we're going to quickly do our accounts payable. We'll quickly do our consent agenda. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the public if there are public comments specifically about the fire budget. I'd like to invite those. And then I'm going to close the first session of public comment, and we're going to do the fire budget right up front, because I'm sure all of you folks know that there is a fire actively burning, and we need to get our fire folks out of this building if possible so they can get back to work and or go to sleep, one or the other of those, or both, in some order. And so we will then, after that is done, I'll reopen public comment for comments about the trash collection or any other topics of your choosing. So that's how we will do things tonight, just to try to be respectful of our fire colleagues. So I will start by reviewing and having my board sign payroll and accounts payable. For the period ending 11/16/24, we had payroll in the amount of $35,261.30. We had accounts payable in the amount of $77,259.46. We did have a standard ACH payment to Swayze of $255,000. And while we're signing those, I would like to acknowledge our treasurer, who this is the last meeting that she will be at with us. She's retiring to greener pastures. She's not taking us with her, but she's going to enjoy her retirement, and we will miss her very much. And thank you so, so much for all your years of service to Brentwood.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Next, I'll take a motion to review and approve the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
For discussion tonight in our consent agenda are public minutes from 11:12 and 11:14, non-public minutes from 11:12 and 11:14, which are both sealed, the rec manifest, the treasurer's report, and building permits. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections to the consent agenda? Hearing none, we will take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll pass the consent agenda. At 6:04, we will open public comment. And for any of those coming late, I did ask the public to reserve their public comment for this first session just to the fire budget and the potential idea of adding some positions in the fire budget, including a deputy and 2 lieutenants, as well as some base pay adjustments. If anyone would like to comment on that, I would like to invite you forward to the table, and please remember to share your name and your street.
Liz Freya, South Road. I had real trouble. I watched I was here for some of the budget committee meeting last night, and then I rewatched it, and I still don't know how many people they're looking for at the fire department. Is it, I believe they have 2 full-time and the chief right now, right?
So right now there are 4 full-time positions, but there's some that are empty.
Right.
So the ask is to turn 2 of those into lieutenant positions and add 1 deputy. So adding 1 body. is my
I thought it
understanding.
was to add 1 deputy, 2 lieutenants, and so it's confusing whether it's 3
We'll
people,
let them,
1
we'll let
person.
them present their own budget tonight, but it was, the lieutenant positions are in the long run, 5-8-year plan, probably additional, short run, transitioning one type of job
So-
into another
So
job.
how many firefighters would there be?
I will
for
let them
next-
comment on that when they
Okay, it
present their
wasn't clear
budget.
when they explained it to the other one. Also, if they're making the 2 that are there into lieutenants, that's not it. I don't know, it
Let's
wasn't
just let,
clear.
we'll let them comment on it.
Okay. I wanted to know if they were getting all promoted, why they also need to do wage adjustments before they got promoted. And I also wanted to know if all the base pay wage adjustments were across the board, which is what the chief said he wanted most of all. I want to know, what does that mean? I want numbers now for how much they're getting and how much they would be getting. So I'd like to hear numbers. We didn't hear any numbers except it would go from 1.1 million to or just over 1 million to 1.3 million for their budget next year. That's the only thing I have on fire.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments about restructuring at fire or the fire budget? Jack?
Jack Mitchell, Sherman Avenue, and here, speaking personally, no, not associated with any organization. I'm not sure what plan you have options on, but I've seen one that had an increase of about $273,000. And just so you can relate that to what it would be for a property owner, that would be about $145 a year.
Under what conditions?
With the,
We're not going to do this, are we?
Okay.
with whatever conditions you would like.
Okay.
The other proposal, I think, was for around $120,000, and that would be $63 a year to a property owner. I hope as we come out of this that we can have a well-functioning fire and ambulance service. I think it's important to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments particular to fire? Welcome.
Well, how you doing?
Good.
Tim Labonte, 157 Middle Road. I'm not sure if there's I just got here, so I'm not even sure if this is mentioned, but is there a master plan for the fire department? And where do you get that?
Good question. We will ask the chief to address that when he's up here.
Yeah, and also, is this part of the master plan? We haven't been able to fill the 4 full-time positions permanently, and now we're looking to do more. And are we willing, is the town willing to pay what it's going to take?
That is the question that will be up in front of the voters. Yep.
Well, I'm just
First
saying-
set of that conversations tonight.
Right, so, there's a lot that I'm probably not aware of. I'm just here as a concerned citizen and a concerned former member of the fire department. All right?
Thank you. Anyone else interested in making public comment about fire? All right, seeing none, we'll close the first session of public comment at 6:09, and then we'll transition immediately into discussion of the fire budget. So we would invite the fire folks up, and we can either share microphone or have people sit at either microphone, however you guys would like to do it. Come on up. And Chief, I know you've talked about this to us, to BudCom, but I think if you could give a brief overview of the intentionality of some of the changes to answer some of those questions that were asked, I think that'd be helpful to kind of set the scene for people. We've heard it before, but everyone in the public may not have.
I'll start off by, first of all, I do have a 2 open positions at the moment. The idea with the 2 lieutenants was to get some stability and seniority on the department, and they would fill 2 of those slots. I'm not creating 2 more, I'm just adding a pay increase basically to get those 2 slots filled. The deputy's position is supposed to be a transition type thing, as everybody knows, and after today.
Retirement's looking better and better
Yeah,
after a 36-hour.
yeah. It's been a long, it's
Shift.
been a long couple of days. Just if anybody doesn't know, we've got a brush fryer that's been running for 2 days. We will be back in there again tomorrow. Started out roughly Monday, and we've been there all day today, and like I said, probably tomorrow. We got the Rangers coming back. And it's been a great effort by the mutual aid companies, great effort by everybody else that's involved in it. I wish I could take you all out there and show you what's involved in the job, and you'd have a better appreciation for it. But that's the direction we're headed anyway. So I apologize if I nod off here. That, I think, would cover the question. The pay scale end of it was something that we sat and took a look at again. We're notorious for we chase everybody when we do it. We came up with figures off of a couple of different union contracts. That was the way the pay scale developed. We will be chasing again because you do this, and everybody, as I've told you before, is either in the middle of negotiating one or just finished one. I'm trying to keep the pay scale somewhat relative to everybody else's. We're losing people. I'm not hanging on to anybody more than 6 months at this point because they're on to bigger and better things. And that was part of the reason that we were looking for the 2 lieutenants to get a little stability in it, and hopefully a couple of guys that are either getting close to their retirements or working in that direction. And we're looking to slow their pace down from someplace like an Exeter or something like that. So that was the idea behind that.
So Chief, to answer Liz Faria's question, your 4 current open positions, you're looking to keep 2 of those as full-time firefighters and transition 2 of those into lieutenants. The thought of why that would work better is that there's a different applicant pool out there that might be looking for a lieutenant job, kind of an end of career, different job pool, different level of experience, more stability, more likely to stay for multiple years at the end of a career.
Right.
And the only additional position is the deputy, which
Right.
is truly a transitional position.
Yes.
Good, great, thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course, go ahead, Paul.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
Okay. When you say truly a transitional position, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that it's?
The idea behind it,
Just to finish
Go-
off.
sure, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Chief, sorry.
no,
So,
sorry.
yeah, transitional meaning that it's transitional to, then getting the chief's position, given, where you're at. Because you and I spoke, and, it's clear to me that, you have an end game, and that end game is going to be sooner, rather than later, and I understand that. But is this deputy position intended to be truly transitional, or one that would be a permanent position?
That would be up to the town. Right now, we're using it as a stepping stone and trying to make it transitional. What you guys decide with the new chief is strictly up to you people. Right. And whatever board they may be sitting here, they may decide they need a full-time deputy and want the full-time day. That chief will have to come back and argue that position at the time it happens. But the idea was to make it transitional, that hopefully you get somebody in here and they're interested in taking on the full-time chief's position. There again, that would be something you would be discussing with the candidates when they came in here, with the understanding that way. I know what it's nice to be in the second slot, because I was in the second slot and had the support above me, and I'd love to have stayed in the second slot. So, it just
Buyer's
makes
remorse.
it just makes things a lot simpler. That was the idea of it. You could probably change it up and do something different as far as maybe a captain or something like that. That would be a structure for whoever's coming in after me. I'm not gonna sit here and make 20-year long-term goals for somebody that if I'm not gonna be here to follow through on them. The idea with it was maybe to do something different at the end of next year if I'm still here, or the next chief is here and I would be discussing it with him, would be to take and probably put another per diem slot on and make the shift during the day 3, and then take the stipend away that we're paying now and pay a per diem to cover the nights. And that would give you a little more stability too. Right now, with the way it's set up, that if somebody gets sick or doesn't, or calls in now or tomorrow morning, it's gonna be a free-for-all as to who's covering the extra spot in the shift. So it's getting tougher to fill those. I may be looking to even put out for a couple of per diems on top of that. That wouldn't affect the budget. That would just give me a couple more people to draw from. The idea behind it, but that's the effort and the direction that I've got it headed in. I'm open to anything beyond that, but I'm trying to make the transition as smooth as possible so we're not, the people that are on this department that I can't praise enough for what they do. There's been a couple of them out there that were on the same long night with me, went to their jobs today, and actually one of them got called back because we called back for a task force for forestries, and he ended up back in town. So that type of thing. So I do appreciate those guys, but it is tough to fill things during the day.
Chief, can you speak to the idea of kind of a 10-year plan or a master plan for the fire department?
At some point, you're looking at replacing a vehicle. I know we were looking at a ladder. That's not gonna pan out because of the way the grants are set up. You're looking to replace that. You're looking to replace probably a forestry at this point. That truck is 1992, standard transmission, and I don't know how many people left in this room can drive a standard transmission. You grew up that way, and the kids, I'm lucky I've kept the clutch in it, teaching some people. So, so that kind of thing, and then the usual maintenance with things, and this department's gonna grow fairly quickly, hopefully. The population's changing in town, the expectations of most of the people in this town are already assuming there's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week fire department, the same way there's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week police department, which is not true. As I told you when I came in here and asked for the 4 full-time slots, the idea was to get somebody out to administer whatever, the first aid, or be able to make the judgment calls that need to be made to get the right pieces of apparatus in the beginning. You take a brand-new young kid that we discussed last night that is fresh out of the academy, got firefighter 2 10 minutes ago, and EMT 15 minutes before that, and you want them to be making decisions at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a deer in the headlight look, and it well should be. So that is part of the reason that I was looking to stabilize that would give you some experience in town that could make those decisions, have done the job, and headed in that direction.
Letty?
This is a crazy question. So you were thinking about adding only one new body, basically, right? Because you're gonna upgrade those 2 firefighter EMT positions. Should we consider keeping 3 positions open? Because we're gonna,
The problem is and anybody will tell you, everybody's doing the same thing. Tim will tell you the same thing, that it's tough to find anybody. You got the large departments out there that are struggling to find the people they want. You're not interviewing the candidate, I said this before, you're not interviewing the candidate's interviewing you. If it's $2 more down the street and that's all he's interested in is $2 more, then he's headed that direction, and more than likely he will get grabbed. The last one that I lost has an interest in the ocean. He wanted to be closer to the water, wanted to play in the water. That was part of the reason he left.
And I think what you said last night, Chief, is that in terms of your priorities, with the acknowledgement that this is a big budget jump for you, is your first priority was some wage adjustments to help you recruit for your open positions. Your second priority was getting a deputy in so that the department will be in good hands when you're ready to retire. And then your third priority was trying to build up those lieutenant slots so that we could get some experienced guys in to help mentor those younger firefighters. And then growth of the department is sort of hinted at, but not necessarily on your ask for tonight, given that this is already kind of a big ask for the public.
Anything I'm gonna walk back in here, or anything anybody else is gonna walk back in here with, is gonna cost money.
Of course.
I have always been, at least myself, with this budget, to try to be as conservative as possible. Maybe to the detriment, but I've been in town, I'm not a resident of town, but I've been with the department 36 years, working my 37th. So I have been through several town meetings and several boards.
More than several.
Boards and budget committees and so forth and so on. So I try to be as conservative as possible. I appreciate the input from you guys. I told you before, whatever you feel you can comfort with and it somewhat lines up with what I'm trying to do, then I'm more than willing to support it, so.
I guess just in terms of, you're talking about having these lieutenants kind of being a mentor for the younger people coming in. Those would be the current positions that we have right now, 4 of them. And I guess in terms of if we don't fill one, then we don't raise that money from the taxpayers, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, you budget for the
You
open
budget for the-
positions that you
budget
have.
For
and
the
then
higher end of it, and
if you don't fill them, that's money
Right.
that can go back to the tax rate.
right, so I
Correct.
guess to your point, if we don't fill it, then
right.
it,
That's not to say I wouldn't take it and fill it with somebody just to fill the slot up, so I've got the 4th person, but I'm trying to get an experience level in the department.
To your
I
point,
don't-
Letty, it's
I
just,
don't have that right
it's
now.
what the public is comfortable voting for at town
Mhm,
meeting,
mhm,
right? Because if you add those positions, if you fill them, that's going to hit their pocketbook. So there is that, as soon as you put it in the budget, there's the potential that it'll be spent.
Mhm.
Paul?
Yeah, and I'm just having a hard time understanding. So I see the 118,
Right.
which is for the deputy. And just so everyone understands, where I'm coming from on that is the chief is going to retire within the next, we don't, it's not a specific date, but it could be 6 to, 12 and maybe just, beyond that in terms of months. Right. So, I think where it behooves us ultimately to get a deputy on board and Letty was pointing, for purposes of that transition and the salary that includes benefits, it looks like, comes to 118. What I'm having trouble understanding is how do we get from, an additional 118 to 290? And I know that there's percentages that would increase and
Well,
such.
if you use, I'll throw Letty under the bus.
Yep.
If you use Letty's, and we've done the looking around, you're walking in through the door with a firefighter, EMT basic, at 22 at the moment. The average in the area is roughly 25 to 26. So you're giving a $3 increase to that person. If you average it out and do it $3 increase across the board to everybody to get them somewhat in the same neighborhood, then hence the reason you end up with the bigger number.
And I guess that's.
Could I, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, and I get the deputy position. It's the beyond that I'm having, a struggle with at this point.
Do you have this one, Paul?
My question on this is, I mean, ideally, we probably would have long-term the deputy and the chief, right, chief? But in the short term, as this is a transition, the ideal the concept here that we're chasing is to basically have someone who's under your guidance and leadership for a little bit of time before you retire. And when that happens, we're not going to have you on the payroll anymore.
Right,
Correct?
right.
So like, so I think Paul, what I'm saying is there's that balancing act in my head about budget versus reality of the situation.
I appreciate the fact that you guys are trying to do the transition. Where it sits, the PD, I think, was trying to do the same thing. You gotta remember that when I came on, and I was told by a couple of people in town, who were the old folks back at the time, that I was already a deputy. And we weren't hiring a deputy. And the pay scale didn't adjust for that position at the time. Andy knows exactly what I'm talking about. But I still had those responsibilities. The responsibilities don't go away. Kevin was the chief at the time. Yes, it was a call department, and yes, we were growing, and we were doing, 300 or 400 calls a year, but the idea was, at that point, there was no ambulance coverage in town, and the idea was to get at least an ambulance out the door. Over the years, this has gone from a true volunteer department to what you're looking at now. When I started out, we were working 5 days a week, 2 of us. Then I went to a 12-hour shift type of thing, and then I transitioned to the 24s that they're in now. And this is the next stepping stone moving down the road. Like I said, you guys, whatever you decide after this, but we're trying to make that transition a little smoother and not have an incident of where somebody walks through the door and is not the fit to begin with. You got the year, they're all under probation like anybody else. You got the year to decide. I will tell you up front that my call department will be very heavily involved in it if I have anything to say about it, because they're the ones that are gonna have to live with it. It's not me. I can make the decision or help make the decision, but it's not me. It's ultimately those guys that are gonna be here after me that are gonna have to live with whoever it becomes if you guys decide to go that direction.
And Chief, just relative to numbers for the base pay increases, this worksheet that was shared with BudCom, is this the one that you
That
went
was
off
the
of?
original budget that I
Yeah.
handed Karen with the idea
Yep.
of just the pay scale. It
And are
hadn't-
these the
it-
numbers you used to make your budget?
Yes.
Okay, so Liz, I can share those numbers with you. He just referenced them in basic terms. So firefighter 1, we have at a current pay rate of $21.84, and the chief is suggesting that go up to 25, as he just mentioned. And then as you go up the levels to advanced EMT, you go up 1 level. That's at 2402. It would be going up to 27. Firefighter 2 EMT would go from 2293 to 26. A firefighter 2 advanced EMT would go from 2512 to 28. So as he referenced, about a $3 delta for each of these. The only one that's a little bit more of an increase, Chief, is your highest paid professional firefighter, which is a firefighter 2 medic, that paramedic.
Like ALS.
Right. That's currently listed at 2730, and you have that bumping to 32. That's just a little bit bigger jump than the other positions. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
That was there again, kind of taking the ballpark reference in the area and coming up with one that fit in. You got them in Manchester and places, or other places that they're paying almost $40 an hour. And you got the other end of the spectrum. So it was kind of a compromise in the middle. So that's the way that pay scale was developed.
Yep. And the averages here I see were based on,
I just want to add, there are a couple of things that are added in
Yeah.
that would increase this even more, such as a longevity type of thing, a pump operator type of thing that is not included in this. So it's an added thing above and beyond that.
I don't know if you know what that is. Pump operator means that you're certified to drive the trucks, and so there does need to be an additional incentive to have that, because we're having a hard time finding people who can drive the
So this would be an additional hourly incentive for people with certain certifications.
Right, which is, there again, based across the board for most places. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm just using things that are already out there.
Can you estimate for the board and the public of the budget increase that you're suggesting, which is about a 12% increase, I believe? Or even, I don't know if this is the final numbers here, or if these are the different numbers.
No, it's
Yeah. Okay, so of the numbers that you're suggesting, if about 120 of it is the deputy, what percentage or ballpark dollar value do you attribute to the base pay adjustments? Do you know about what part of that was?
Oh, Katerina,
Does Katarina know? I mean, if you don't know the exact, but if you know,
She's got,
because it looks like about,
we've played with this. My mind is
40%
fried
of
at the
it's-
moment, and I apologize.
you don't have to.
I know you, that's okay. I'm just asking if you know, sort of. We know the deputy's pretty clear, and then another section of it
you-
is the base pay, and another section is the lieutenants. I just didn't know if you had that broken out.
At the moment.
Okay.
Then maybe you said this, but you stated what
No, we haven't talked about that. That's kind of what I was asking. Do you have that?
The
can't hear
scale
Liz.
I'm looking for a lieutenant, I can give you that.
Yeah.
We're looking at roughly 30 to 3450.
So just kind of similar to above the highest paramedic level.
Yeah. Steal my paper.
I'm just copying down what it says.
And for example, the turning your current full-time firefighter into a lieutenant position, what's the wage point for those current open positions relative to this 30 to 34? How much of an increase?
The
are we talking?
basic firefighter 2,
Firefighter too, so like so
And
it's like a
EMT.
$23 up to like 30, like a $10 increase per hour.
it wouldn't probably be that much. We would be starting roughly there.
Okay, so a
And
5.
there again, if they've got a pump
$10.
operator, it's gonna be a
Yep.
little bit more and so forth.
Okay, so that's part of the budget impact is the
These numbers
transitioning
that I
those.
came up with again are roughly out of a calculation from somebody doing a union pay scale.
Yep, okay,
This is what you're competing with. I know we're not union,
Mhm.
and I know we're a small town, but at some point, you need to bite the bullet. It's coming. You're either gonna do it in some shape or form, or you won't have an existing fire department. Call departments are getting smaller and smaller, and people volunteering to do those call departments is getting smaller and smaller. I actually had 3 people in there tonight, totally brand new. Don't know what a hose coupling is. They're getting ready to go through firefighter 1 and 2 this fall, up through Maine, that we're gonna put them through. That is something that I'm gonna try to squeeze out of my budget, because I think we should be paying for at least a class. The amount of time that's dedicated to that on your nights and weekends, this is not a sit down and do the computer thing. This is literally a hands-on class, which to me, if you're in the fire service, gets you started in the right direction, because there's a camaraderie that you develop with people as you go through the service. And starting at that base, you get to rely and trust on people, and you can't do that off a computer.
John?
Well, I for one am extremely supportive of us assisting with the training element, Chief, as you know. But I was hoping you could comment just very, very briefly on the national standards, the number of employee or firefighters we should have on staff. I know we all laugh it, right, but I think it's important for context
Use
to
the
understand
NFP's
how
NFPA
far behind we are.
Use the NFPA standard, and I know Tim will correct me if I'm wrong, 16 people on scene before you put a line through the door. There's not, and unless you're a Nashua or a Manchester, I think, no, even Portsmouth sits at roughly 14. So unless you're in Nashua or Manchester, you're not gonna beat the NFPA standard.
So I think that when we had talked about this before, you had said it would be great if we could have 4.
It would be great if we could put 3 on an engine and 2 in an ambulance at some point, just to get started.
So,
That's
So,
you
like,
push
Paul-
down the road because you're trying to man that ambulance and you're trying to man that piece. That gives you 5. You're running a cross-training type of thing. That would give you 5 on this show, assuming the ambulance is in. But most of the departments around right now, the bigger departments, are trying to run 3 on an engine.
So Paul, that was the discussion that Letty and I had with Chief and this, the firefighters, a while back when we started having this conversation, and it's just shocking to me how far behind,
If you turn around,
we are on this.
if you turn around 30-something years ago, we weren't doing the call volume, so you weren't doing the fire end of it as much as you are now. You used to have to beat people off the truck. I lived around the corner from the station. I lived in town here. I literally lived around the corner from the station. Myself, Kevin, the ex-chief, and one other guy lived across the street, and we could be there in about 30 seconds, which used to tee off some people. But at the same time, when you rolled that engine out of here, and if it was just a 3, you literally had another half a dozen or so coming in pickups and whatever else they could get there in as manpower. Right now, you roll a truck out the door, and I'm not telling stories out of school. All you gotta do is listen to a radio, and everybody goes, well, how come you got 30 trucks lined up down the street? Well, you got 30 trucks lined up down the street because you got 2 on each truck, if you're lucky, depending on what time of the day it is. I'm not trying to
No, we hear you.
paint
Things
doom
are,
and gloom.
things
All
are
you gotta do
different.
is buy
than they used
yourself
to
a
be.
scanner, you can listen to it. It'll tell you exactly what's going on.
No, we
Hence
hear
the
you.
reason I'd love to have dragged you people down to where we were today.
No, I hear you. Okay. And Chief, I'm looking at this budget, your new budget, and to kind of answer my own question, what I'm seeing in here is the wages line is going up about 68,000. So that's probably mostly those wage adjustments. The administration line is going up about 100,000, and I'm assuming that's the lieutenants
No,
in
that's
there?
that
Or that's
would
the
be
deputy?
spot.
That's mostly for the deputy, okay. And then where would I see the lieutenants in here? Is that under the
Yeah, well, we
salaries?
got,
That would be
yeah, it
the
would be under the
wages.
wages.
The
and
wage, so-
Full-time firefighter.
Okay, so that's 68,000 is the wage adjustments plus the
Plus-
lieutenant adjustments.
right.
Okay. The 100,000 under administration is for the deputy. And then, of course, we have the expected retirement and FICA and Medicare,
Yeah,
all
all
that
that stuff that
flows
adds into it.
downhill.
Yep.
And then the other big change on your budget I see is protective gear. I'm assuming that's related to the PFAS.
The PFAS
gear
thing
that
that's
we've
going
talked
up, and
about.
I'd like to be able to pick up an extra set or 2 if we can do that.
Yep.
The quicker you move in that direction, the better off it is for
Okay.
everybody.
And then I also see your overtime line is up about almost 24,000.
Again, if
Can
you
you speak
start
to
putting
that?
lieutenants in for overtime, you gotta pay the lieutenants' pay.
Okay, so that's up adjusting on the assumption that you're paying lieutenants to work overtime rather than just a full-time firefighter to work overtime. Okay, okay. So I'm just trying to understand, that's basically how it breaks out. A lot of your budget is level funded.
Yep.
You decreased vehicle repairs by 10,000. Can you speak to that?
We had probably an anomaly last year that, with the repairs and so forth with the equipment, that runs up or down depending on what you're doing and what you have break. You know as well as I do what it's costing to fix your own vehicle.
Yep.
Never mind one of these beasts. You throw a screw at it and it's $100, so.
Okay. Other board questions, comments?
How many calls
about
have you
this
had so
budget?
far this year?
Sitting at, what is it, 886 or 887.
We'll say 86. 'cause that's
About the same place we were. I think we're up about 10 or 15 from last year. We started off real busy, it dropped off, it got quiet, we're getting busy again. We were busy today. We could have been at about 4 other places had we not been tied up over there just with the mutual aid. It was a quirky day everywhere today.
And Chief, if you don't mind me sharing that, last week, we had briefly talked about these fire changes, and in concert with the chief and this board, we elected to bring this to BudCom before making any definitive decisions, to kind of take the temperature of BudCom, so that ideally the Select Board and BudCom likes to be on the same page, so we can go to the voters as a unified front. We had a pretty substantial conversation last night at BudCom about these changes. And in general, there was a super majority of BudCom that was in favor of some of these changes
I would like,
because of the safety implications, the retirement succession planning issues. And really, there was quite a lot of support at BudCom for this type of budget increase, with the knowledge that we'll have to be very clear and transparent with the public about why some of these changes are really crucial for us to survive and to allow our fire department to survive.
I would like to thank the Budget Committee from last night. That was a very productive meeting. I have told you guys up front, and I've been with other boards where they've made decisions here, and those people were not part of the decision, and that's why I have sat here at every meeting with you guys and said, please,
Yep.
let's sit with them and let's all be on the same page, or at least close, so we're not
Yep.
throwing spears at each other.
I think it makes it easier for my board because, it's important to us to align with BudCom, and it's
Right.
important for us, for the voters, I think, to understand that the BudCom agrees with Select Board. And so it was very reassuring to me to hear that they were in support of this budget and were in support of advocating this budget to the public. So that makes me more comfortable in supporting your
It does
budget.
to me too, and I thank them again. It was, like I said, a very productive meeting last night.
Great.
Sorry, just one more thing. For reference, I looked up in 1994, which is 30 years ago. There were 284 calls for service
Yeah.
for the whole year.
Yep, definitely, things have changed in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyone else on this board have questions, concerns, or comments about the budget in front of us?
Not to nickel and dime you, Chief, but can you just explain radio repairs and equipment purchases?
Radio repairs, the $2,000 is not stretching out. I don't have a separate line item for buying pagers, so I kind of steal it out of that. So that was part of the reason I increased it. Everybody still walks around with a pager. They've got 9,000 apps and everything else, but the pager system probably works the best out of the group, so you've got to replace a few of those every year. The really cost of repairing a radio is going up too. So that was that. And what was the other one?
Equipment purchases.
Equipment purchases, I have my hose tested every year by an independent company. The hose that's on all of these vehicles was purchased with a grant. At some point, the hose testing company is gonna say, you've outlived the use of the hose, and I am trying to spread that burden out over a few years, so I'm looking to purchase some extra hose.
So that goes up about 3,000 from 5,000
Right.
to 8,000 in your budget. Other questions from the board?
Just a comment.
Yeah, please.
Chief, I really appreciate what you do.
Oh, and I enjoyed the conversation we
Yeah,
had.
yeah.
I'm trying to educate everybody,
Right.
and anybody else that would like to sit with me from the public, I'm more than willing to take that time and sit down and try to explain it to you.
Yeah, and the chief is extremely accommodating. So I say this, with all due respect and just in the context of the, economic climate that we're all feeling at this point. Because again, when we're talking about close to a 30% increase at 290,000, it's just something I can't ultimately support. But what, I'm willing to support, and I think I told you this,
Yeah,
is,
we sat and had that very frank conversation. I didn't expect anything different walking in here. And like I said, I will have these conversations with anybody.
Yep.
And your opinion is your opinion, and I
Yep.
respect you for that. And I'm not gonna challenge anything that anybody has as long as we do it at a civil level.
yeah.
Sounds good to me.
I support, the 120,000 for a deputy. I think it's absolute. I'd even support another, 6% or so, built into the budget beyond that for another, 60 grand or so. So if we were looking at 180, which is, increase, which is about an 18% increase, in my mind, that's pretty healthy. But when we're looking at 30 and close to 300 grand, it's just beyond, where I feel the public, and that's who I'm trying to represent here.
I
Could
totally
go.
understand, I totally understand where you're coming from. I will tell you, I'm an insurance policy.
I get it.
And
I get it.
And that's all I am, is an insurance policy.
And
And I'm, like I said, and to you, all I'm trying to do is give the best of my ability and hopefully my group's ability to cover that insurance policy.
And as the chair said, this will ultimately be hashed out at the town meeting. I understand that as well. I'd even, make a motion to, do an increase at that level if I thought it would be supported by the board, but I don't get that sense that there's an appetite, but I wanted to at least express to you why I wouldn't
No.
ultimately vote in favor of this.
We had the conversation, and I
Yep.
totally respect your opinion.
Okay. Other
Andy,
questions
You're over
or
there
comments?
calculating away.
I was just looking at, you have 270,000 left from this year's budget, so I was
There-
trying to,
There again, those are the unfilled positions.
that's not all of $270,000.
It's a good part of it. If you start figuring in the positions themselves, the overtime, the trainings that you figure in for these, that's part of it. It's not directly those two people, but it adds up along the way to that. This is gonna be, like I said, I'll walk in here, or whoever walks in here next year may have a surplus in it again, depending on how big it is. There's a couple of things that haven't come out of that yet. Part of that is the gear purchases that you guys have agreed to that I gotta split with you guys.
Mhm.
There's a couple other things that I might like to pick up for equipment. I haven't sat down and figured it out yet. I usually turn somewhere around 100, 100 and a quarter, I think is the history. It just happens to be a little bigger this year because I've been that much longer without the full-time
Yep.
people.
And to Letty's point, if if you underspend your budget, that money is available to return to the taxpayers.
Right.
Yep. Other questions or comments? And I think Paul's point is an important one, that the BudCom and the Select Board, if we vote to approve this budget, is sending a message to the public that those two groups feel that this is really important for the health and safety of Brentwood, but it is up to the voters. And if the voters want to make a change to this at town meeting, that is always their prerogative. And so this is really our chance to send our message of what we think is in the best interest of the town of Brentwood.
But it, just also for clarity, if the voting body makes a change to the bottom line of our budget, it is just a bottom line number,
Correct.
and we get to pick
Correct.
where that's effective.
That is correct.
Yep.
Any other final comments on this budget or questions for the chief? John, any further questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Anyone else? Paul? Okay. Is anyone interested in making any kind of a motion on this budget?
I would move sorry, go ahead, Letty.
Okay, so John, a motion for the budget as presented.
I think Letty was gonna make that motion.
You
Okay.
can, it does, we'll fight over it. I was just gonna read the number, because do you have it in front of you?
I don't.
Okay,
no.
Letty, why don't
All
you
right,
make the motion?
I will make a motion to approve the fire budget at $1,297,761.
John, would you like to second? We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion before voting? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
For the reasons I previously stated, nay.
There again,
Letty?
no.
Aye.
And I'm going to vote aye as well. And I appreciate the public's comment and the BudCom's comment. And we will move forward with this. And I think Chief will ask you at town meeting to really focus on the most clear-cut explanation to the public of why some of these budget changes are crucial to the survival of your department. And we will try to get the public on the same team as us.
And again, I will stress it, I'm there 5 days a week. If you would like to come in and sit down and discuss it and
Great.
give you a better understanding of how a fire department works, because it is a different animal,
Yep,
Well,
that I would be glad to do that with anybody.
great.
and we're gonna talk about this later, but maybe I could also work with you to come up with like a one-page summary of
Yep.
that we could then
Right.
distribute to
Yeah.
people.
I think whatever, the more information we can give to the public about why this larger than normal change is needed this year, especially for succession planning, I think will be helpful for the public to understand.
Yep, no
Okay.
problem.
Thank
We
you.
can do that.
I don't think we have you for anything else unless you need us for, oh, well, you need your budget too. True, I guess we should do your budget too. Okay. Yep.
Pass that down. Want to switch chief or something?
Sure.
Sure.
You can have the chair.
That way I'm not yelling.
The rules.
All right, so I am looking for a 13% increase, and that's mostly in wages for myself, which I'm the only one that gets paid out of this fund, and just following his pay scale. I also was wondering if I am able to, I wanted to put in a line for uniforms. And I made it the same number as the fire department one. So that's that's $350. That's a new one. And what else went up a little bit? Our billing services go, like, the more call volume that we have, obviously the more we're paying our billing company. And our maintenance contracts, because of our new stretchers that we had purchased with the ambulance, those added some to our maintenance contracts. Yeah.
Haven't had a chance to review this. If you got a maintenance in there for the new,
The Lucases, we paid it, we're paying it for
Through the-
6
through
years.
the-
Yes,
through
yep,
the-
yeah, through the actual purchase. Yep, yep.
And Alyssa, can you remind the board and the public
Sure.
how this budget is funded?
So this budget is funded by the revenue that we make from ambulance calls. It's not taxpayer
Right.
impacted at all. So anything that is shifted in this budget does not affect your taxes.
And can you talked about a wage adjustment for your position. Can you
Yep.
talk about how you formulated those numbers?
So that would be Katerina too. I
She's
basically
lurking in the
used
back.
Their
again,
pay
if you
scale
go
that
back
they
to
have.
If you go back to that red scale with the paramedic,
It's based on that
I'm-
it's
same
yes.
based on that same.
pay scale
And
for
it
the local
has
towns.
the captain pay plus the an EMS coordinator as well. So that's where that number came from.
Okay,
Is that a full-time position?
This is a part-time position, it's 32 hours a week.
okay.
Which gives you a paramedic in town when she's on.
It sure does. It sure does. We are happy about that. So you have a 16% increase in that line, and then you've got the uniforms, which is a $350 addition.
Correct.
Your billing is up about 10%, and then the maintenance, as you talked about, is about doubling
Correct.
for to up to 4,500. Otherwise, this is a level funded budget. So overall, you're presenting to us a budget that is going from 120,781 to 136,461, which is a 13% increase. How does that ballpark budget of 136 compare to the revenue that we bring in for ambulance? Is it, what
Much.
percentage? Is it 20%, 50%, 80%? What's the ballpark of?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, and obviously, like, our revenue varies
course.
from year, but it's usually about the same. So I think we're pulling, what did we make last year? Do you know off the top of your head?
I can tell you what you
Yeah.
made through
No?
through the beginning of October.
Perfect.
Yeah, what kind of ballpark is that?
Hold on.
Just for, I'm just kind of getting a sense
No,
of what our costs are relative to.
So the other purpose of this fund is to buy a new ambulance.
Correct.
when that comes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what the extra money
So it
goes
is.
for.
There
So it
is-
is
yeah.
overfunding this position. Hold on. There's a lot of deposits. All right.
Agreed, yeah, you
So
want to
th-
have money left over.
So through 10/8, the deposits alone total 211,000.
Okay. So it's about, maybe let's say half-ish goes to the cost.
No,
and the-
no. Well, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're talking, yeah,
Roughly,
okay.
yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, thanks. I was just wondering for
Fish.
ish. Yeah.
Well, it's only
Well, it's also only October.
10/8.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
only
they're
October,
gonna get
so
another
it will
whatever.
change. Okay.
Just give it-
And any other revenues just go directly into the fund to help us buy a new ambulance and new
Correct,
equipment?
anything, yes, exactly, yep.
And for example, the new Lucases we just bought and the Nitronox and all of
Yes.
that. Yep.
That warrant article was written with a little room, wiggle room in it. Your last utility truck that we bought came out of that fund.
Yep.
So there is some wiggle room in it.
Yep.
It was rewritten that way, so I believe it's fire department equipment purchases or something to that effect.
Gotcha.
On the ALS thing, seeing who's bringing it up, I do have another meeting tomorrow. There was a group of the chiefs getting together, trying to come up with an answer to this situation. I think we're making good progress. We've got a group of profit-making group coming through tomorrow to make a presentation. We heard from like I told you, the Plastow chief. We heard a presentation out of the ALS group themselves that are trying to put something together. I want to praise those guys up and down. They are a great group of paramedics, and you don't know how much we appreciate the fact, after they've been fired and hired about 4 times with the hospitals, that they are willing to stay through March 22. We are working on that. We hope to come back with that. There may be some costs associated with this. I want you guys to understand that up front. I don't know what the costs are going to be, but we are trying to be as frugal as possible. If we go the direction that I'd like to go, it would be basically level funding it. It wouldn't be a profit type of thing. So the ALS calls would be billed by your department. It would be a fee that is charged for the service itself. And as I've said before, they are looking, we've looked at it a couple of different times. The chief down there has got a program that lets them calculate without response times. And we are looking possibly of housing that paramedic unit.
Chief, do you anticipate that the costs associated with that program would be problematic, given that most towns will not have budgeted for that?
That is one of the issues we're working on. I'm not gonna tip hands, we're working on something.
Okay, thanks.
We've got it set up right now. He's using 13 towns as the basis for it. It would be all the way up to Deerfield, Nottingham, that direction. This way, basically Stratham, that way, and back out this way, it's Kingston, East Kingston. But that is the general vicinity that we're working with. And we're working out, he's got a pretty good program. I
Okay.
think you guys, if we go that direction, we'll be in
And we potentially have some revenue to offset whatever costs if we're gonna allow some housing of these folks in our facility.
We discussed
Yep,
a very nominal fee, but
right.
it's kind of based on what Raymond is using
Okay.
up the area, what he's kind of seen in the past.
Okay.
It's not a big increase, but
Okay.
like I said.
You'll keep us posted.
If they're in the station, they give you 2 paramedics in town.
Yep.
The reason you run a 2 paramedic fly car these days is they have what they call an RSI, and that basically, they can teach other people, but it works better with paramedics.
Yep.
And if you get that serious trauma call, they love to bounce information off of each other and make it much safer.
Great. Okay, keep us posted. So we have the EMS budget in front of us. Are there board questions, comments for Alyssa about this budget? Seeing none, is anybody interested in making a motion?
Moved.
Second.
And that's for the 136,461. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before voting? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we will pass that budget, and thank you both very much.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you,
for
And we'll
yeah.
get you out of here.
Yes.
Go check on the fire. Good luck, stay safe.
Thank you.
In the woods.
It's actually on the exit side of the line.
All right.
Out there, the access is fine.
We will let these folks clear out, and we will now go back and resume more general public comment. The other topic that we had solicited comment on was the potential of updating our Casella waste contract to go to an automated system with an estimated cost savings to the town of about $25,000. That would involve changing up into, from using private trash barrels into a carted system. So the public is welcome to speak about that or any other topic of their choosing. And we will reopen public comment at 7:03. Come on up.
Lois DeYoung, Crowley Falls Road.
Hi, Lois.
Hello. Well, as for always with me, I'm going to address the elephant in the room.
Sure.
We would like to know, or I would like to know, as a resident and taxpayer, did Karen Clement resign or was she fired?
That is absolutely your prerogative to ask that question. We are not going to release that information because that is private personnel information. We don't release that information about any of our employees under any circumstances. What I can tell you is that Ms. Clement no longer works for the town.
Oh, can you tell me, did she receive severance pay?
I'm not going to share any details of her leaving us.
And are you attempting a replacement?
Yes, we are going to look for a replacement. We are all eager to have a town administrator, let me tell you.
I'm sure that you've had to work more than,
Yeah.
because that, you all have.
If anyone knows someone who might be interested in helping out the town of Brentwood as a town administrator, send them our way.
I will do that.
Thank you. Other comments?
I just had a couple questions.
Liz Furia, South Road.
Oh, sorry, Liz, for yourself. Everybody knows me by now. One is just something I didn't quite understand, and it's probably an easy answer. I know when Daphne does the town clerk and tax collector and the assistant, both of those budgets are split in half, and everything that goes up, and so forth. So are they approximately, I don't need exact, but are they approximately 20 hours on one and 20 hours on the other? You know what I mean?
I don't think they can calculate that because it's going to vary drastically day to day, week to week.
Okay,
depending on
but it's
who comes
basically
in.
half and half. It's not like one
I think
is.
the budgets are split basically half and half on the assumption that it's half and half, but to Letty's point, one customer could be tax, the next customer
Right.
is the other
But
department.
they're pretty close. They're not
they're
like
about
one is
50.
way, except maybe if you have 5 elections, right?
Right.
Okay. Also, maybe it's on there, but I didn't see it. You have that the treasurer position is, you're looking for a treasurer. Does it say on there that it's 1 day a week?
I believe so, yes. that
Oh, it
is a
does,
part-time
okay.
Well, and
position.
Well, it's a part-time position, but it's not necessarily 1 day.
There's
We have it
part-time-
currently budgeted for 1 day a week.
Yep.
I know, but I mean, for somebody applying, if they think it's, 30 hours versus
I think,
8.
I know, Andy, you helped us with that job posting. Did we specify?
It didn't specify hours.
I think because we weren't entirely sure what that would encompass.
Sure.
I think it would be easier so you don't waste your time getting people who want a lot more time than that. Also, for the lieutenants are also listed on the hiring. Lieutenants for the fire department are also listed.
What we had set up with Joe several weeks ago is that we would post an anticipated position offering to just sort of get it out there and see if there was any interest, and that those are not formalized job postings, and that we were waiting until this went through the normal process of approval. But the chief had asked us to kind of put that out as a feeler. And so they are listed a little bit differently as anticipated future job openings, to sort of let the public know that those positions are potentially going to become available.
Okay, and 2 other questions. One is, I was looking for an old packet from a previous select board or budget committee meeting. Is there a way on the website to get the previous, like yesterday's info?
I think usually the packets are posted before the meeting.
Yeah.
If they were, you should be able to get that right off the town website. If you're having trouble finding one, I would speak to
No,
the
I'm talking
chair
about in
of
the
that
past, like
committee.
it happened yesterday. It's not up there anymore.
You can go, it is still there. That meeting is still in existence on the calendar. You can still click on it. Or if you go, for example, to budget committee, it will show all of the past meetings and you can click on the date that you're looking for.
They're not removed once they're posted.
The
They-
packets are not removed?
No.
The agenda and the
Nothing is
packets?
ever removed.
Okay, so it is
That
there.
doesn't
I
mean
just,
it's-
I
That
have to
doesn't
look
mean
it
it's
up.
always uploaded. but
Okay.
Nothing is ever removed.
I might come next Tuesday to see you, Letty, to figure it out. And let me see, I think, are we looking for a new police chief too, or we haven't determined that yet?
Chief Ventura is still on leave, so we will update the public when there is resolution of that situation.
Okay.
Thank you. Other comments? Hi.
Hi, Jen. Dexter Swayze, 42 Old Gordon Road. I'm president of the Brentwood Historical Society over at the Grange Building, which is a town-owned property. There. Get it all in one breath. I had I requested the Budget Committee do a site review of the Grange Building. It was kind of generated from the capital improvements plan and stuff. And they toured it last Monday. Jen was the representative on the board that did it. And just to kind of go over what some of the issues are over there at the Grange Building that's been requested. To kind of make a long story short here, the Budget Committee did it, we talked about it, and last night at the Budget Committee, Jen made a good suggestion that the board should also physically go over and look at the building. So maybe set up an appointment or time that's convenient for you. Okay?
Yeah, my point to Dexter was that Budget Committee's role of doing site walks is really to help them with budget planning, and the Historical Society does not have a budget because your building maintenance comes under our regular building maintenance line and capital reserve funds. And so that really the target audience of work that needs to be done in that building is really this board rather than BudCom. And so I certainly can share the minutes from the walk with my board that sort of highlights some of the main structural safety and other things that your organization is looking for.
Yep.
And then maybe after budget season settles, we can have everybody come out and visit. That work?
Sounds good.
Okay.
That's, when will that end? I'm just kinda
So we
getting-
usually finish up budgets around the end of the year,
Okay.
and then, and then things go towards town meeting. So, you can let us know if there's things that you feel or if there's an urgent time frame, and we
No,
can set
just as long
something up.
as it occurs, that's
Yep.
all.
Yep.
Okay, and who
Sounds
would
good.
get a hold of me and?
You, why don't we just kind of like keep it open, and we
Okay.
will let you know if there's like a particular time of year that works best for you,
Good.
we will certainly come. And as we talked about last night, if there's urgent needs for your building,
Mhm.
you are always welcome to come to this board and make a specific request
Yep.
for those needs.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe Doug had a nice suggestion
Okay.
last night, so
Yes, he did.
regarding this.
He did, yep. Sure. Go right up ahead.
Good evening, Doug Finning, Gove Road. During the site walk, a few things came up as to what they were addressing or what they'd like to see happen. One of those, or two of those things was incorporating water or a septic system. Through the site walk, we were downtown, we went to the basement, we went upstairs, walked the whole building. It was noted that there's a bulging in the foundation that I viewed, and the joist in the building seemed to be deteriorating significantly. Given some thought on that, given some thought on that, I wasn't quite sure if the investment of doing a septic and water at this time would be advantageous for us to pursue, because not knowing how the building is overall in wear and tear, I suggested that maybe we have a foundation expert and/or a structural engineer come in and take a look at the building. At which point, I did reach out to Emmanuel, and they said that to come out and take a look at the building, anywhere from $200 to $1,500. An average price is about $900. When leaving last night's budget meeting, Letty did give me a name of New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. I reached out to them today, and thank you, Letty. I appreciate that. And spoke to a young lady, Meg, out of Niles Erickson Company, and they're out of Hudson. They're affiliated with New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, and what they do is they'll come out and take a look at the structure of the foundation, give recommendations. I asked how much that would cost, and she said, provided that it was a person of decision-making authority, which I was not, there would not be a charge for that type of review, and they would do an analysis on that. If in fact that I want to do that independently, initially the cost would be $150, and they would also do a review on the property. The gentleman that would be coming out is John. If we were to entertain, I'd be looking for a person of authority, either Dexter or somebody from the board, to reach out to this company. And the first available time they have is December 4th. The other company that I spoke to is a structural engineer company, also affiliated with New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. I didn't really speak to them. I left a message, and that's Kevin Warden, and he's out of Lebanon, New Hampshire. And I have not heard back from them, but I would imagine it's same type of format. They look at historic buildings. That's their expertise. So it might be a good avenue to go down. And I think that's pretty much, and Dexter and I spoke last night. He seemed to be inclined to feel the same way. And the other question I had is, I've got something from RPC. You want me to wait until committee updates?
You can give us an update now, since you're right there in front of the
Okay,
microphone.
real quick.
To
RPC,
just close the loop on the prior
Yep.
issue, next steps, in your understanding, would be just giving that information to us or to Dexter and having us set something up? What do you see as next steps here?
Can I make a
I think reaching out to New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, somebody with authority to say, yes, you can come out here and start the initial consultation, confirming that there's no cost to doing this.
Yep.
And from there, setting a date, I would emphasize that Dexter should be on hand for that.
Yeah, 100%.
And I can either pass this on to
Yeah, maybe you could just
Dexter,
get that information to us.
If you could
or why can't
just
we just
email.
authorize Doug to do it?
I think Doug, as a private citizen, does not have town decision-making authority.
No.
And
And-
we couldn't delegate that authorization?
I'm not sure that.
I'm not sure
you
he's
could.
volunteering
Is
for that.
volunteer? Okay.
It sounded like you were, it sounded like you were almost there.
Do you have an email, or how are you supposed to? get
Email,
back?
Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that, Doug. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
doing that legwork, and I thank you very much. I'm sure the Historic Society thanks you too.
Shouldn't have
Okay.
got my nose into it, I'm sure.
All right, RPC?
RPC, real quick on that, we had our meeting on the 13th, and as an update, on the 10-year plan, Brentwood is now on the 10-year plan, for those of you who know, for the roundabout on South Road 125. It's, granted, it's on the 10-year plan. They do have that budgeted out currently at $2,800,000, with an inflated cost at the end of 10 years of $4 million plus. Not sure what's going to happen, but we are on the priorities list with the regional target. So I tip my hat to everybody who was associated with that, and thank you. And
I think if I remember correctly, Steph Kizza gets the
Yeah.
bulk of all
Yes,
applause for
sorry.
getting us on that
Yep.
plan,
very
correct?
much so.
Thank you,
And,
Steph.
That happened pretty rapidly,
Yes,
especially
very
with
rapidly.
all the changes that were made on South Road and the turn. So I know roundabouts aren't the most popular thing, but statistically, it slows the traffic down, and it's a much safer way to enter traffic on a four-way.
And getting on that 10-year plan at least gives us a voice in the
No
game,
guarantee it
right?
will be
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
we're there.
Great,
First
thank
time.
you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Other public comment? Mark?
Mark Kennedy, I just want to double down, Prescott Road. I just want to double down. We are at the top two. We're on the top two of that 10-year plan. Which-
Even better.
Exactly, yes.
What would remind me, the first was the roundabout, what was the second plan that we put on there? Do you guys
I
remember?
attended that meeting.
There were two.
Don't remember what the top two were.
I
They
know,
were
I'm
the,
totally blanking.
they
Was
were the
it-
two
was
with the
it
lowest budget.
Pickpocket, maybe?
I don't remember
what the
which-
other one was.
Which made second, yeah. But they were bouncing back and forth between
Yeah.
our project and this project. So
Wonderful.
we are the top two, and it'll be full funded. They had all the funding for it. That's one of the
Wonderful.
reasons it got pushed to the top. Oh yeah, Plastow, Main Street. North Ave intersection.
Cool,
Yeah,
Okay.
which is exciting
great.
to get some of that state money. Private citizen, trash. Is that something that will be voted on at town meeting, or do you have all authority to make those changes?
I think the board has that authority, but we certainly, because it would be a change for the public, we're looking for public's thought and input on making that change.
Will an ADU count as a household?
Yes.
Will you be able to opt out of recycling if you choose to and get an extra barrel?
Just don't put the bear.
I doubt it, but we can certainly talk to Casella about
They
that.
did say that there was a process for if
For
somebody-
exemptions and
if somebody
exceptions.
felt like they needed more of something, they could, right?
I feel that it's a personal choice.
Okay.
It does cost more than trash.
I mean, I can imagine that they don't probably care that much if they're delivering 2 barrels to you, what color they are.
We'd have to work all
Well-
those details out with Casella.
It would make it pick up different.
I mean, assuming it wasn't happening everywhere, then yes.
The thing is, if an individual homeowner was not interested in recycling, it would not save that individual town homeowner any money because the contract probably would not change. You know, because I don't think we would, the idea is not that each homeowner would pick and choose what they wanted to do. It's that we would have a blanket approach to the whole town. So that was my impression from Casella, is that if there were little exceptions, that's something that the town could offer, like a large household that needed an extra barrel, but we wouldn't have the ability or the wherewithal to give like individual credits to people who
It's not
opted
like
out
an
of.
a la carte
No, I'm not, no,
situation.
that's not where I'm certainly
Okay,
not going
okay.
with that. No, not at
Gotcha,
all. I
okay.
just feel that it is a personal choice, and if you don't choose
Sure.
to participate and you would need an extra barrel for your
Sure.
trash, then I think that
I'm
should be
sure
an
that's a
option
question we could ask them,
for your household. And I just wanted
I
to make
imagine
sure
that would fall under the exceptions.
potentially, yeah.
that that was an option for a homeowner to have.
Okay.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
Thank you. Okay. Sure, Jim, you can go. And Jim, Jim had a long discussion with BudCom last night about predicting taxes and tax setting, and wanted to talk to the select board today about how to manage the fund balance. And Jim and I did talk, and I did ask Jim that you keep your presentation fairly short tonight. We certainly could have a much longer conversation next summer or fall when
Sure.
this is more timely, but this decision has already been made for this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
I will turn it over to you.
thank you. And you have the slides. And just before I get into that, I think you said it would be $25,000 savings for trash.
That's what Casella quoted
So,
us, that the automated system was
If it's 25,000, just from my perspective, on a $20 million budget, don't annoy the people. That's just my opinion on that. I wouldn't do it for 25,000. It doesn't seem like enough to aggravate people.
Noted.
I'm here to just mention that, yeah, this all started about 4 or 5 days ago. I started trying to figure out why my tax bill came in at a 7% increase when at town meeting, when I voted for the budget, it was supposed to have been a proposed increase of 3. So there was just a big difference. And I appreciate the help I got from Jack, as well as today I met with them for 2 hours with Letty, trying to, and we worked this all through last night. And we discovered that one of the reasons why there was this big deflection or, abnormally last year was because of the use of the fund balance. So I didn't know anything about fund balance 3 days ago, but now I'm, I guess, the resident expert. And I just wanted to share it with you because it is an important topic. And you're right, it's already set for this year, but I think for next year and beyond, people need to understand it. And I think we wanted to share it with the board tonight, just so that you all have that information. So the first slide, I just basically got this from the New Hampshire Municipal Organization and Association, but they talk about where we should have our fund balance set at. So if you look, they mention Moody's between 15 and 30% of revenue. The GFOA says you should have between 5 and 15%. The New Hampshire Department of Revenue says we should be between 5 and 17%. And the truth is, so you take somewhere in the middle of that, it's about 10%. And they say that it's really based on you should have 2 months of operating expenses in reserve, okay? So if you look at the actual numbers, when you go through and calculate that, so the first line where it says operating expenses, that's the total operating budget, and I have 3 years there, right? So the next line is the total fund balance in that year. And the fund balance is just, I believe it can be only caused by either excesses in revenues or we have expenditures that were less than appropriations. It's a good thing, right? It's extra money that
Like
we have.
a savings account.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I highly recommend I put the QR code, and I hope this will be in the packet so that people, if they want to look at this, they can look at this. They had a great explanation of fund balance and what it means and how it's used. But for us, my focus was our fund balance was roughly, you have the numbers there, right? The next line where it says fund balance used to reduce taxes. That's why I'm here tonight. That's how I found out about fund balance, because if you look in 2023, there was a big spike. We went to $1.7 million where we were somewhere around 900,000 before. And looking back, it was about that all the time. And that anomaly is what kind of caused the projection not to be accurate. Because in previous years, it actually had been pretty accurate, very accurate. What Jack provides is really accurate. He does a good job. It was just that anomaly caused the problem. But what it also did was you started looking at, well, what is the retained fund balance? And that's what the next line shows, is what we actually have retained in the savings account. So you see it's roughly $1 million. And then you take that percent, that percent in your fund balance to the operating expense, the total budget. So you can see we went, we're about 5%. We went from 5.5% in 2022 down to 4.5% in 2024. At the bottom, I just listed out, if you go by the recommendations from the GFOA as well as the New Hampshire Department of Revenue, what we should have in the fund balance. And that's where, again, I'm just giving you the data. I think there's a concern there. I think, maybe there needs to be some looking at this going forward. But like you look at the 2 months operating expenses in 2024 is $3.6 million. Well, we only have 2 months of operating expenses in 2023. 977,000. That's a shortfall of 2.6 million. If you look at the 10%, roughly the middle of what the GFA and the New Hampshire Department of Revenue recommend, they would say you should have $2.2 million roughly, which is a shortfall of $1.2 million. And if you look at this Moody's recommended, and honestly, I tried to find out what our bond rating is in Brentwood. I couldn't find it. I don't know whether what we are, but it says on their sheet that if you to have an AA rating with Moody's, which means you'd get the best interest rates if you had to borrow money, right? You'd need to have 15% fund balance, which is $3.25 million, and again, that's a shortfall of $2.29 million. So again, I'm just presenting you. It was information that I didn't really know much about, and then with the help of Letty and Jack, we discussed it today and felt it was important to share it with the board for whatever use you want to make of it in the future.
And I'm sure you understand that if this board wanted to increase our fund balance up into the 2 to 3 million mark, that would raise taxes substantially for multiple years.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that. There's only a couple of levers. Like you said,
Yep.
Increase taxes,
Yep.
you decrease expenditures,
Yep.
or you get some sort of valuation change, which probably isn't going to happen because we want to keep this place rural. So yeah, there's two ways. You reduce expenditures or you increase taxes.
And I think the other thing that we talked about, Jim, is that the board is now very aware of how this process works and what
We had to become aware of it.
what these different numbers mean. And I think moving forward, it would make sense for us to maybe have a policy to have a place that we're aiming so that these numbers aren't as squishy, to kind of account for this sort of anomaly.
Again, thank you I know you're really busy, and I really appreciate last night you were there. I mean, it was a long discussion. I think it was fruitful. It helped me a lot. And again, I can't thank Jack and Letty enough. I mean, it was really a team effort.
Great.
We all really, I would say, didn't know much about this, and in the last couple of days, I would say we're experts on it now. So,
Great,
thank you.
Other public comment?
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Don't we get like that report that gives us like a recommended?
Yes, historically, our town administrator has advised to us what we return to the taxpayers. And I can't speak for her because she's not here.
Right.
But historically has recommended around about the 5% in order, my understanding is, to give the maximal tax relief to the residents of Brentwood.
Right. But don't we get that report back from it's like DRA?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we used to make
the town
our-
administrator gets it.
That's the discussion we had several weeks ago when
Yeah.
we set the tax rate.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
I don't think you would typically see that. I think you would see that spreadsheet.
We get a spreadsheet, yeah, absolutely. Liz?
Liz, for your South Road, living on South Road, I am totally opposed to a rotary there. And I do like the traffic mitigation that they've already done in South Road, which is done very quickly and fairly inexpensively, and I don't even think we had to pay for it.
No, state
December.
road.
It's fantastic, and I do think it's definitely helping since I go on that road almost every day. The other thing I wanted you all to consider, you and Mark and the RPC people, is that if you're going to have a police station or multi-complex building at the recreation area, I think that's where you're going to need the rotary or traffic mitigation, because that's going to be.
That's been discussed as well. Yep.
That's, yeah. So not everybody's for the,
Thank you.
the rotary at South Road.
Thank you. Any other public comment? We do have quite a few things on our agenda still, so unless it's urgent, maybe we can close public comment? Okay, I will close public comment at 7:29 for our second session of public comment. We'll now move on to our discussion action items. Do we have Wayne Morrill here tonight in the audience? No, so maybe I'll turf that to later. Andy, are you okay talking about the Casella contract a little bit later and letting these budget folks go?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we will do the budgets. I think rec is maybe a little bit faster budget. So we'll maybe do rec and joint loss first and then go to highway. So if rec wants to come on up.
Joint loss should be quick.
Yeah, joint loss will take 10 seconds.
Joint loss is level fund.
You want to do that one first?
Yeah.
Bang it out? Let's bang it out. Let's do it. Let's do it.
I'll make a motion to accept joint loss at $241.
Yeah, you can plug it in right over there.
If we can have quiet in the public,
Okay.
please. We have a motion for joint loss for $241 level funded by Andy.
Second.
Second by Letty. And we'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul? Letty? Aye. And I'm an aye, so we will pass $241 for joint loss. All right. Then
Glued my table.
we will move over to rec.
Just to verify, you can see that, right, John?
I sure can.
Great.
All right.
Alrighty, I'll start.
And there's two, just to clarify, there's two copies in our packet. I'm assuming the handwritten one is the most updated one?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the other one is just the historical one, slightly different.
Something's happening to the.
Yeah, the one with the bottom line of 163.
Oh, it's back up. All right.
Okay. So I'll start off by thanking everyone for having me here tonight. It's always nice to spend Tuesday nights with you here. And then we'll dive right into it. If everyone's looking at the budget that I have in front of you, I'll cut right to the chase. We've kept all line items but two level funded. We're going for a bottom line increase of 45%. And that would be due to wanting to add a secondary position, full-time position to the recreation department. And what I have here tonight is just a slideshow that kind of goes into some of the background and maybe some of the reasonings as to why we feel that way. So everything you see here, I started here, the reason I put 2018 to now, that's when I started, 2018. And everything you see in green is all the new either activities, programs, facilities, events that has been added to the department in my time here. And all of this is, you know, the meat and potatoes. Obviously, we've had some smaller programs in and out over the course of 6.5 years. But everything you see here is either pre-existing and or new additions since my time here. Don't worry, I won't go over every single bullet point here. I'll save everyone the time. But basically, we broke everything down into our seasons of the year, and that's how we look at our programming. So, you know, for example, you know, you see where we are with T-ball. We've had that every single year. Years where it's NA, you'll see that a lot in 2020. But in the spring season, we've always had field hockey's moved over to the fall time. But we've always had good numbers. And whenever we've lost a program, something like softball, we've always tried to find a way to replace it with something new, like a new sport that made New Hampshire Chronicles cricket. And it's becoming a little hotbed in the area. Moving on to summer. Summer is one of the busiest times of the year for a lot of recreation departments in New England. And as you can see, we have a pretty robust adult co-ed softball league along with our growing summer camp. We were still able to maintain having a camp in 2020. Am I?
I just need you to talk into the mic as opposed to looking at the screen.
I'm very sorry.
Look at yours.
No, it's okay. It's just that the people watching the recording won't be able to hear you.
Yep. So in summer, like I said, we have a pretty robust softball program, and summer camp has grown on a year-to-year basis. Some of these numbers aren't the most accurate reflections, you know, where you see 52 and 23 and 24 of summer camp. We did have a higher number of full-time summer camp participants this year, but you can see the general growth on a year-to-year basis. Going into our winter programming, and like this is going to factor all the new stuff that's been in there as well. But you know, we've added open gym to our programs. Youth basketball is always one of our bigger programs. I believe we're actually 110 kids for 2024. We just closed registration over the weekend. As you can see from established programs and or new ones, we are maintaining a high level of participation. And for our year-round programs, I would expect pickleball for sure to start seeing some big changes starting in 2025 and moving forward. But again, it goes into everything we've had here. We've been able to either get back to where we were pre-COVID or at least keep these programs existing. Always looking to add more. Love to bring more babysitting classes, women's self-defense classes, things like that. Town events, this is probably where you'll see the biggest jump. Our town events have almost doubled in my time here. And if you're asking why an event, something like Daddy-Daughter Dance is on here, I treat that very similar to National Night Out. while it might not be a recreational event, we are the facility hosts, people using our fields, our parking, the utilities there. Anytime we host a facility or host an event, there is wear and tear on everything there. But just this year alone, we've added a fall fun run, our haunted walk program. It was our 4th year. It was by far our biggest one. It's personally one of my favorites. But as you can see, and then obviously the cherry on top of them all is our holiday stroll peach project. That's been growing on a year-to-year basis, 2-night event. And that's kind of where we are with that. And then when it comes to the facilities, these numbers are a little wonky. When it comes to facility and canoe kayak, that's single usages of those things there. Where you see field, those are averages. So for example, I talked about losing softball. We didn't really lose softball. We lost softball as a rec program, but Exeter Junior Baseball Softball Division absorbed them. They have Brentwood only teams. Those same kids and those same families still need a place to practice, play their games. So while the foot traffic hasn't changed, that's why you lost softball here. That's why you're seeing the field rentals increase, is because we've either added new users to our fields to make sure that Brentwood student athletes or Brentwood families can stay here on our premises and still play their games and practices here in Brentwood. And that's kind of where I'm at with this. I may have skimmed through most of it here. I got some backup here, so if I left something out, please help me out here. And to keep going into some of the materials I gave you earlier, I did present a job description of what I applied to in 2018 versus what I think would be a more accurate job description for my position now. And then obviously what we would call the secondary position, which is a program coordinator. And some just other useful tips or information that might go along with this is other towns in our county that are in similar situations, demographics, all that fun stuff would be Northampton, Deerfield, Nottingham, and Chester. All 4 of those communities either have 2 full-time rec staff members or at least 1 full-timer and 1 part-timer in their departments. Right now, we are operating under 1 full-time employee and seasonal employees for the remainder part of the year. Let me save some of this afterwards. I guess that's my meat and potatoes there. Is there any questions? Val, did I leave something out?
Sure, coming up.
Valerie Rogers, North Road. I serve on the board and have for over a decade. So we've watched this, the rec department grow over the years. We're in desperate need of this position to be a full-time position. There's a lot of advancements, the town is looking for from the facility, from the fields. That's a lot of work for the rec director to do site walks, do this. I mean, just arranging the new pickleball court, that's a lot of his time that has to be spent. There's still programming. We need to be able to continue to advance our programming, advance our facility. We need 2 people in this position. In the summer, the second position will run summer camp. That's the idea, which we already have the part-time position for that in the budget from last year. So yes, it's a large increase, but we're going level funded. We're not asking for an increase on everything else. Consistently, the rec is still the only department that I'm aware of in town that pays 45% of the costs to heat the building, put electricity in the building, and a lot of people aren't aware of that in town. 45% of all those costs, and actually, it's more than that at the end of the day. So the town gives us 55% of the budget, but when the bill comes in higher, we're writing a higher check out of the revolving fund, okay? So years when oil skyrocketed.
Sorry, what, can you say that again? It's only 50%?
55% from the town.
But that doesn't
count for overages. It's with the budget, that's always what we've been allowed to do. So when the oil skyrocketed years ago, or electric prices go up, the town portion is still only that percentage that was budgeted, and the rest comes out of the revolving account. We've absorbed these costs year over year over year. To the tune last year was $34,000 came out of the revolving account. Okay, So yes, it is a 45% increase, which looks enormous in terms of a percentage. When you look at what the town is actually paying for a town-owned building and a town-owned property, which is, I believe, the biggest property in town, and it's, you know, the only real true meeting place in our town. I don't think having 2 full-time positions is out of line. We've inched this up over years. I started when this position was a part-time position in total in the department. That's when we just did soccer, t-ball, and basketball. The rec department is so much more than that, and the rec center has become so much more than that. And to continue to grow and have the advancement within this department, it's time to have two full-time positions there.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question about the revolving fund?
Sure.
Has it ever seen a decline, or is it always an increase from year to year?
Well, we've definitely had declining years. COVID years weren't really great for us. We had no rentals. So some of the revolving fund gets beefed up from not only programming, but from rentals. So 2020, 2021 were taxing years. We've had years where the revolving account has gone down. For instance, the year the building had termites, and the select board at the time didn't approve paying for that out of town funding. It came out of the revolving account. So rental facilities, soccer money went to pay to treat termites at a town building. So we've had various years of ups and
When
downs.
I was hired here, our balance in the revolving account was 44,000 and change. And today, it's roughly 37 and change. So we've kept it pretty healthy and pretty much at that same point. And as you know, previous slide I showed earlier, is I'd like to think there has been a lot of growth here in the department, and with that growth, I mean, this position we're asking for is more so to maintain the status quo and not overgrow our needs here in Brentwood per se. And I was debating going back and forth if I would state this or not, but I think I'm going to. Earlier in the year, you know, and I thank God every day that this happened during the 17 weeks I had my camp director here. I did have to leave the office for a full week for a family emergency. God forbid if that were to happen at any time in the year, there's no one else here to kind of keep the ball moving forward. Rec doesn't stop. It is a year-round industry, and people's expectations and services have been increasing on a year-to-year basis, and it's our job to serve the community.
I have a couple clarifying questions. So for example, your last year budget of 112,000, it sounds to me like the way this has historically been set up is that out of that, only 55% of that money is actually allocated to the rec, or does that
This
number
is the
represent the
55.
55%?
So if you take the salary out,
Yep.
55% is all the other line items.
Actually,
so
it's electricity and the heat.
Yeah, like
That's the biggest ones.
Yeah.
This is the 45%. And the
not to-
55 comes out of the revolving account?
No, 55 is the town's portion.
I see.
So the
45.
numbers that we see here from years prior is really meant to represent the 55% portion with the
Yes,
expectation that the rest is paid by the rec.
Yes,
There's-
for
Yeah.
instance, portable toilets.
Mostly
I think
electric
the budget
and
was
heating.
$500. Is toilet still 500? 750? I can't remember.
No, we have it 2250.
Okay, that went up. We've had
We kept it.
years where we spent $4,000. on
Right.
toilets.
And for the board's education and also the public, what are the other items that the revolving fund is traditionally used for? So if you
Land
weren't
maintenance.
paying land maintenance,
Absolutely.
Land maintenance,
Okay.
repairs to the irrigation system. The rec van has been fully funded, so we use capital
We use-
or impact fees to purchase the
Yep.
van, but the actual maintenance of that van comes out of the revolving
Gotcha.
fund.
Our light towers, same thing.
light
They're brand
towers.
new, so
stuff
there
that's
hasn't been a lot
not,
of maintenance required
stuff that's
on
not
them.
in the budget that you just pay for.
Correct. I mean, our
Exactly.
budget is very much heat, electric, a little bit towards the land, a little bit towards the building. You know,
Right.
you guys buy toilet paper.
Our contract with, for just the fertilization of our land is more than what is budgeted here.
Yep.
And we've always been able to absorb those costs through the revolving fund, but with the growing programs, and town events, I kind of treat those as large scale programs. You know, you do months worths of planning for 1 to 2 nights. You need safe facilities. People need to see where they're walking. They need to be able to park. I'm sure everyone has seen and or heard the nightmares of parking over at our facilities over the last few years. it's great that we're getting extra foot traffic and people want to use our space, but sometimes good things come with some
Sure.
speed bumps along the way.
Sure.
But we've been able to absorb a lot of additional costs through our revolving account.
Yep. And can you,
Additionally, if you go on a Saturday over there, I mean, this
Oh,
facility is
I know.
used.
Oh, yeah.
The building is used, the fields are used. You know, you'll have a full building and you'll have full fields every given weekend. It is definitely used by our community, and I feel it's time to staff it up.
Yep. And Andy, can you talk about, so the seasonal salaries is going up from 13,000 to 52,000. Can you talk about, so that was a part-time summer camp director flexing up to this new position, and what's your expectation for hours? This is a 40-hour position?
What we're presenting in front of you is 40 hours year-round. And yes, that 13.6 would be built into that 52. It's designed for the secondary position here, where it's not like we're going to be adding a whole bunch of summer camp staff into this line item. It's specifically for what I'm calling the program coordinator.
Is the summer camp staff
And this is also
included?
budgeted for up to 25 per hour. So, you know, obviously if we're approved at all stages and all levels, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to hire someone at 25 an hour. That's what we're budgeting up to.
Are the summer camp counselor salaries in that line as well? or
No,
that-
they're
those are
all out of
revolving
the
funds?
It's all revolving.
Revolving,
funds.
okay.
So it's just the two full-time the
Okay.
current position, increasing the part-time position to a full-time position.
Okay.
And is the 52,000 budgeted at 8 months?
I think you're intending it to be 12 months
12
or
months.
not?
I put it down for 12, but I mean, I didn't know what that process was. If it had to wait until after town meeting, then I can adjust if needed. But the idea was that we were presenting this for 12 months.
What were you thinking, Andy? in
Well,
terms
we
of-
wouldn't hire until after town meeting.
Oh, sure, gotcha.
So it's an,
So March.
Yeah.
this
can be
year, it's an
adjusted.
8-month position.
Correct.
Next year, it would be a
12
12-month.
month. Okay.
Exactly, yeah, so you could adjust down that number, potentially.
Correct.
Gotcha. Other questions, comments for Andy?
It's not specific to this budget, but remind me, what was the total increase of the budget in general when we looked at it?
So
as a whole?
it's been a moving target. The very, very first one we looked at was 12%, I want to
Think
say,
the, like, draft
11%.
one?
The draft from October, when not all budgets were even finalized and when we didn't have the health insurance numbers. When we've plugged in some of the updated budgets, some of the budget cuts, I think, I don't know what our current running number
I
was.
actually don't know.
I'm not sure we know because the police budget, with Chief Ventura being out, got delayed. And so that's obviously a heavy hitter in our budget. We obviously would like it to be single digits and not double digits. I'm sure the public as well. And so I do think that we're looking for places to limit spending where we can, with the understanding that we just approved elevated fire budget.
I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there was something in the neighborhood of 17% that we were talking about at one point.
No, I think that was us worrying that that initial number we looked at, if we had a big health insurance bump, could get up to that level. I can tell you right now what the one that was presented to us by Karen was in October. I want to say it was around 12. And all of us were thinking like, ooh, we need to try to get this in line if we can. It was 12. It was an increase of about 760,000, and that's been a moving target. Some of our budgets have gone down, and obviously some have gone up. And so I think once we talk about police, we're going to have a much better sense, and highway tonight, police and highway, we'll have a better sense of what that number is looking like.
Was that with the fire or without the fire?
This was with fire, I believe. Let me just
I think it was
double
with
check.
some of
The
it.
original fire, not the
Let me
revised
just,
one.
I can tell you that in 1 second. Fire. It was with a 12% increase in fire instead of the 25% that we just voted on. So it was like a $120,000 increase instead of a $290,000.
I think that was because we hadn't added the new positions yet.
Yeah,
that
this
was just
an
the wage
October
adjustment.
1st draft. Yes, correct.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Please.
Yeah.
Letty, if you could help me double check my math here, but I think all of this is correct. I have $6,200. I'm just looking at the rec proposed budget for next year. So I think I have $6,200 for electric under the rec budget, $3,500 for heating, and then $2,250 for the toilets.
Yes.
And I'm highlighting those numbers because I think it's interesting that we're making the rec pay for those out of their funds. So that's why I'm highlighting those three specific numbers, and then dropping 13,000 off of the 52,000 proposed costs for the new position. The 13,000 comes from the fact that it wouldn't go into effect until town meeting. So now with those changes, I'm looking at a budget of requests, just a potential here, just for this discussion, for purposes of discussion, of 137,896 as compared to 112 last year. It's a 22.4% increase rather than the 45%.
So John, you were down adjusting that seasonal salary
So-
line down to like 34,600.
30. Oh, that's even more. I dropped it down to 39,000.
If you do.
Yours is probably more accurate,
year.
Jen.
Yeah, I just did like, divided by 12 times 8.
Hold on, I have a spreadsheet.
I just chopped a quarter off of it.
Yeah, if you budget it for 8 months, that would drop that position down to 34,667.
But I think there's more money built into there than just that.
Because there's retirement and.
Did you guys lose this?
Yep.
Well, that's just that's
goes to
just the
sleep
seat.
after a while.
That's just a salary line. It would change then. Medicare.
So maybe
retire- all those
39,000. Yeah, so maybe just
We'd
keep
have
it
to
at
readjust.
39,000.
And
So
certainly,
I think
we could, if this board is in favor of adding that position, we could table this budget and recorrect all those flow down numbers from that position, because it would lower your retirement, your FICA, Medicare, et cetera.
and to be clear, the electric heating and toilets, those costs don't go away. I'm just suggesting that I think that's a town responsibility, not the rec revolving fund responsibility.
Can I just add a slight correction, John? Rec pays a lot out of the revolving account for the land maintenance more so than the toilets. Like a lot more.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah, but I see land maintenance as a rec function, to be honest with you, Andy. I'm seeing toilets as like a town like other departments don't pay to have toilets, out of their budgets.
So you want to add to the budget?
I'm fine with that.
I think
So
he
it
just
sounds
wants to
like-
point, not this year, he's
No.
not.
I think he's
No,
just
I
making
don't
a
want to
point.
add to the budget. I'm saying that those numbers I don't think that those numbers should be in the rec budget. I think that the town should be paying for those costs anyway. And so that was where I was coming from is just a different perspective on the budget increase with the new position, of not necessarily the 45%, but actually from my perspective, I'm seeing it as a 22.4%, roughly. And like Jen said, that would need to be adjusted somewhat when we get down to the specifics, but that's kind of roughly where I think it's actually at.
Sure.
So I have several thoughts.
We'll get to you one sec, Val.
One is that 55-45 split should be for everything. If for some reason, like the price of electricity or oil goes up, we should maintain that split. That's just my personal opinion on that. If we're gonna do it this way, we should do it all the way. And Andy, I don't know if I don't think you were here last night when the budget committee was talking about this, or you were here just now when we were talking to the fire chief. We just made a huge increase in that budget. Would you be willing to wait a year for your assistant?
I mean, I would prefer not to. I feel like I've waited 3-4 years at this point. We just waited until now to present it to you and then to the public. We're just at a point now where with all the town events and programs going on, we really are requesting this position to maintain status quo.
Val?
I just want you guys to be aware, if you were to like pull out the electric and all that, it's actually much larger costs to the town because again, it's only
Yeah, because you're paying some of it out of the
55%.
revolving fund, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want people to think that that's what the electric bill is. It's
No, we're not doing that this year.
Yeah, that's why we left it level funded and we actually didn't ask to go up on those line items at all because we were going for this much needed position, and it's actually a much greater difference if we were to actually add back in the cost of toilets, the actual cost of toilets, the actual cost of
Sure.
electricity.
Sure.
And heat.
Yep. Yep, I understand that. Other questions? Paul, you look like you have a question?
Well, yeah, this conversation about, whether it's the revolving fund or the town, I mean, the town's the town. The money, comes out of, into the town and out of the town. I mean, it's not like, I'm sorry, I just don't view the rec department as separate from the town. So when we're making these decisions,
The revolving fund is separate though.
I understand that's a separately set up fund, but I have to make these decisions based on, the whole in terms of.
But there is no other department that takes in revenue
I understood.
in the entire
understood.
town.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, there
are
is.
departments that take in
Yeah, there are.
revenue, but they
The-
just don't
the-
have
the-
to pay for
The,
themselves.
the fire department just gave us a budget of
Yeah.
Yeah.
$120,000 from the revenue that they take in.
You're absolutely right on ambulance. You're absolutely right. But I mean, I'm just saying that this is a distinction I think that we need to make when we're talking about the rec, right? I felt like it was when we were hearing that just now, it was the town's money is the town's money. And it's like, well, that's not actually what we're talking about here. Like we're talking about the costs that people are paying to use the recreational rec fields, and then they have that budget going into it's a separate account to go through land maintenance, to deal with toilets, to deal with all these other things. I'm just saying this is not tax money that we're necessarily talking about here.
Yeah, I think what's different here, John, is that this budget is made in a way that doesn't reflect the true costs. That's, I think, what feels different. Whereas like the ambulance budget has the true costs and they bring in the revenue. That's what I think is a little bit different about this budget. And we could certainly talk about that in the future. Do we need a bigger change of how we do this budget? I'm not sure I have an appetite to totally change the philosophical way that the rec works right now in this moment. So I think what might be most helpful to move this topic forward is to get a sense from the board. Is the board generally in favor of going to the public with a budget that includes a new salaried employee at somewhere in the range of $35,000 for a partial year next year? Or is the board not in favor of that? I think given that that is the biggest change on this budget, that would be very helpful to have the board weigh in on that or vote on that if we want. And then if the board is in favor, potentially turning this budget back over to Andy to make those adjustments so that we have a more accurate budget that we can then reopen or leave open until next week and then briefly vote on that once we have made that decision. So I think that would probably be helpful to just express our intentionality to Andy if we're going to support this position.
I
or
think
not.
my preference is not that I don't support the position, because I do, but again, just looking at the huge increase we just had, could we do it as a warrant article so that the taxpayers could weigh in?
We could. That's always an option. Yep. Other thoughts from the board?
Yeah, I mean, just to be consistent, and I will.
It's 8 o'clock. everyone. 8 o'clock.
And I will always co-ed softball at no cost.
He's volunteering his services.
I am. But, again, to be consistent, it's, a difficult climate when we're talking about increases that are, probably going to be 15, plus percent
Oh,
at this point. No?
hopefully not.
Letty's gonna find something.
Okay, but, you know,
She's got that optimism.
in light of that, it's difficult for me to vote yes at this time.
Andy, do you have thoughts?
Andy, when do you bring in the summer rec person?
This past year, which was our first year that it started May 1st. And they went all the way until August 31st.
Okay.
So it's, depending how the calendar falls every year, it's roughly anywhere between a 15 and like 18 week. I think it was 17 this past year. It's gotta be close to that.
My only thought on that was to hold off on the full-timer until you would normally bring in that person. So push it back from April to May 1st. So another month of savings.
May, June, July, August, September,
That's what you're
October,
saying,
November. So that's still,
So if you were,
that's still about,
like I'm picking what you're
8
putting
months.
down, you're saying that if you're in favor of it, start at May 1st.
Yeah, start it whenever you would normally start the summer program, and then you would continue them on
Gotcha.
permanently after that.
Right, but the thing with that, Andy, is that that is helpful for this budget, but then we're talking about it continuing indefinitely in the future.
Town's growing. Can't stop the growth.
I understand. I understand.
We can't burn out our employees either.
Yep.
I can go back to those numbers. We had over 400 people at the Haunted Walk, and then we had a quick turnaround to do a 5K. I mean, we're getting busier every year, and I don't know of other rec departments with one person doing all this and still maintaining not just a level of the same programs, but also the quality of it. The town of Brentwood is on there. So when you have a community-wide where there's other people from other towns and, you know, we are a representation of that.
Val, do you have an idea already of the revenue increases we've seen over the last handful of years?
Yes.
And while she's looking for that, Andy, I just want to commend you on a very well thought out and put together presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, it was a team effort. Always is. Thank you, Val.
Waiting for my computer to wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a year-over-year profit and loss to show the total expenses. I also have a year-over-year sheet that shows what the budgeted amount for items were and what the actual cost is, and then the delta. And that's why I said, you know, 34,000 came out of the revolving fund last year. It's because I have a spreadsheet that told me 34,000 came out of the revolving fund last year. That is information we can provide to you guys. We can get you a copy of that workbook, if that would be helpful for you.
So I'm hearing sort of a variety of different opinions. Some people feeling like this is not a change they want to bring to the voters quite yet, although supporting it in the idea. Andy has a suggestion to maybe start this position a little bit later to reduce the tax impact for this current budget that we're building. How would the board like to move forward with this decision so that we can give Andy something to work with moving forward?
Do you want a motion or just a?
If anyone would like to make a suggestion for how to move forward with this budget, yeah, I think that'd
I
be
make a
helpful.
motion that we put this position as a warrant article starting May 1st, so that the voters can decide if they want to do this in addition to the fire changes we're making this year.
Okay, so we have a motion for that. John?
I found what I was looking for. If I could just, and sorry to interrupt the
No, that's okay.
motion process, but so total income in 2020 was $42,860. Okay. 2021 was $70,962. 2022, $85,000, $85,263. 2023 was $107,000 approximately. So I'm just pointing out that the story that you're hearing being told from Andy and from Val is one of growth, one of need, and is accurate. And then we can see it reflected in the amount of money that the town, the account is taking in as a result of these increased use of these programs. So I just,
Yeah, I guess I
Estimate.
want to be clear. I'm not denying that, and I'm not saying that this is not an important position. But if you're asking me, do I want to spend money on firefighters or rec? I'm gonna pick firefighters.
no,
I'll second Letty's motion.
Can I just throw one thought out for discussion on that motion that's out there? To John's point, if the revolving fund is growing and we have a new pickleball court that will bring in new revenue, is there any possible suggestion that we could use some of the increased revenue to offset the cost for this new position?
I think Andy said a little while ago that even though the revenues are growing, the fund is not growing. The fund is less now than it was when he came
Because the expenses
to the
are
town.
Because expenses are up. Okay, I hear you. Okay, thank you. That explains it for me. So we have a motion and a second on the table for the board to support this position, but to put it as a separate warrant article to get the public to weigh in on it as an individual new town employee.
Well,
Any further discussion?
wait a second. I don't know that it was a support. It was just to put it out to the voters, right? Not with necessarily.
Well, I think in general, if it is a raise and appropriate money for a position, the select board and BudCom generally take a position on those warrants that involve appropriating funds. So the select board would have to take a position on that. You don't have to,
This, well, I mean, if it.
Wouldn't be now.
yeah, we
the
would do that
select
later
board-
on when we do
the
warrants.
Select board is in favor of putting it in front of the voters, I guess would be the way I would think.
Yeah,
of it.
neutrally, right?
No, I mean, you could abstain from the vote, but any warrants that we put in front of the voters that involve raising and appropriating money, the select board and BudCom takes a position on. If it is a non-monetary warrant, then we do not take a position.
I have a question.
Yes.
I understand fire department's request. I don't really want to get into other departments.
Sure.
My question is what could happen in a year from now to have the same mindset of, well, this is a safety thing. We need this now. It's not rec department, so rec can wait another year.
Yeah.
That's my question.
I think that's a good question. I mean, I think that's what's so difficult about the budgeting process is that there's a lot of needs across a lot of different departments, and they're all 100% valid. And at the end of the day, it's the voters that decide, not us. And so actually, I think that that is what Letty's getting at, is that this is adding yet another town employee. And I'm interpreting, Letty, that you're meaning like, that let's let the voters decide if they feel that they have room in their taxes
Yes.
for an additional person.
Yes.
Val?
That is my.
Does the select board ever recommend cutting positions from other departments if they
Sure.
are participating? So I'm just asking, and believe me, I don't want to pick on the library because I don't, but we have far more participation in our programming, our facility than the library does, and they have far more staff than us. Year over year, I've been up here for 12 years doing the budget. Year over year, the rec gets pushed to the bottom because there is a need. Highway needs a new piece of equipment, police, fire. and
There's a lot of needs, yeah.
But you got pickleball courts this year.
It's true.
And the road.
Yep. Yeah, I think this board has been very supportive of rec. And I think this is why it's hard to be on this board, because this is taxpayer dollars we're talking about. And if we put a budget in front of the voters that's up a huge percentage, it's going to be a hard sell. And so we have to decide.
If we looked at the overall budget, what is the actual, I know the actual rec spend looks like a big, but what would be the impact to the townspeople?
So I think if you look at this, what, $50,000 difference?
Yeah.
And we have cut that amount out of some other budgets. Some of our other budgets are down that much. Every single change makes a difference. To your point, is it a huge difference? No, not when you're talking about a total 20 million appropriation for school, town, and county.
What did you say the estimated increase was? Some
12.
700 something?
700 something thousand. Yeah, 700. That was the first draft that we got. Yeah. Yeah. So we do have a motion and a second on the table for the select board to consider this as a warrant, and you can interpret that how you want. You could even modify that to just say that we were asking for it to be removed from this budget and then re-presented as a warrant. Is there further discussion about that?
Just your feelings on budget versus warrant?
I think this position is needed. I've participated in some of these rec things. I participated in the Haunted Walk. Like, there's tons of people there. And I think Andy is a busy person, and I think we've wanted to support the rec. So in general, I support this position, but it's difficult. Like, I'm looking for places to cut because I'm the chair and I have to help present this budget to the public in March. And it's going to be hard to present an inflated budget. And we put ourselves then at risk of getting cut, and then the 5 of us again have to decide what to cut after the fact, and that's not fun either. So I am kind of in the middle. I 100% think that this position needs to exist, and I think maybe putting it to the voters as a separate topic, and then having everybody rally those voters to really understand why we need this might be a solution to help us draw down the budget number a little bit. And I do think we need to look at all of these budgets to see if there's anything we can trim out. But I do think that you need help.
Well, thank you. I generally feel the support from everyone here individually. I just do want to point out, again, I'm one person doing this year round. And again,
we hear you.
No one knows when something in life could happen. And that did happen to me. And so the question and I don't need an answer, but it's, what if that happens again? I can't control those things. How does the department properly service the community? How do we properly run these events, making sure that our facilities are safe enough for people to be at our facility?
Yep.
I feel like we've been operating under, I've been calling myself a one-man wrecking crew for a while now. And I'm here with this request, and I definitely understand what everyone is saying, but I could not highlight more how important this additional position is.
I hear you.
I've always been very conservative with what I present to the board every single year I've been here. So I hope it comes across when I'm asking for something, it's because I need it. And it's not necessarily because I want it.
No, we get it. We get it. So we do have that motion and second on the table. Any other further question or comments? No?
So I'm just going to say I'm supporting Letty's motion because I believe the position should be there. And I don't have the votes to get it in the budget, so.
Okay. Sounds good. So let's take a vote on the motion to remove that position from the budget in front of us and have it represented to us as a warrant article to bring in front of the public. And we will take a roll call vote for that. And Andy, you're first.
Aye.
John?
No.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty? And I'm going to vote no for now. And we will have that then pass 3-2. And we will ask for this budget to be represented to us without that position. Obviously, you can leave your seasonal in there. And then we'll ask you to come back to us during warrant season and represent that as a warrant. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having me, everyone.
Thank you.
Instead of having him come back, can we just approve, because everything else was level funded?
The only changes is it will trickle down all the FICA Medicare retirement.
Because
if
of-
you want that to be correct, it should take us 5 seconds to approve it if that math is done.
Okay.
Okay,
So you want
thank
me
you.
to come back with the updated numbers?
Yeah.
Just wanna make
I mean, I don't know if you have.
You don't even
come
need to be
back.
present.
You
It-
can
Okay.
just give
Yeah.
it to us.
All right, so
Just
update it and give it to you.
Just fix the math, we'll approve it.
Sounds
Okay?
good.
All right, thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
And anybody in the public who's listening, who's interested in seeing Andy get some help, make sure you come to town meeting and use your voice as your vote. All right, we will now move on to the highway budget.
Do we have going for 2 hours and 15 minutes?
Would you like to take a recess?
Yes.
Can we
Paul
do
would
that?
like
We're
to
gonna take a
take,
break.
Paul would like to take a
5
bathroom
minutes.
break, so we will take a brief recess and then we will be back. I know. It's expensive to rent a town. It's hard. It's hard. No, but you know, it's just hard. Yeah, whatever. Well, we're gonna have to.
Word is out there that I've already gone and checked the state.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
Who's the driver? My concern was, I have no problem. Travel up and down. My concern is if it were a bad
Okay, so if you go under services. Yeah. So if you go under services, I mean, I'll let Stephanie know so she can fix it.
That is up, I go by snow, snow and ice.
But for wages, would you eliminate the wages for snow and ice to pay for new hire? Because that would take out half of the body. I'm just throwing it out so everybody's listening.
It's not just for a season, this is for
I know, but this is because this.
Let me give you a good example. I'll give you.
Well, you should wait and say that. Where's your seasonal one? Where's the same? That's it. Where's the seasonal? Where's your seasonal? New hire? Yeah. Should we add that to you? I know I gave it to,
It was all the hot air. What did I do?
I heard charge of trash. How much does a full 95 liter gallon, whatever that thing is?
A lot.
Trash. Yeah, I have a long fridge.
It's on wheels. It's on wheels.
I know, but it's like 340 feet long. It's long. You still have to carry it over 2 steps.
You don't have to carry it. It's on wheels.
No, but I have just, how do wheels go over steps?
You don't have a garage?
I do have a garage, it's not in the garage. It's outside the garage, but there's like a step up that way and 2 more steps down. It's like over the steps and up through the woods.
Well, it's either that or you go back to a dump. Because nobody can hire trash people. Well, that and the insurance, when you have some guy hanging off the back of it, it's too expensive now.
And they flood and they fall off and somebody gets like 45. I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay, Wayne's still in the restroom? Okay, so we've got the board back. We're just waiting. All right, so we've got the board back. We've got Wayne. All right, Letty, can you turn on Wayne's microphone?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so we are now back in session at 8:24 after taking a 10-minute recess. And we are going to discuss the highway budget. All right, Wayne?
Okay. First of all, what I want to say is thanks for letting me get up here and do this.
Sure.
But on my budget, all the line items that I have, I have a lot of line items.
Yep.
That I have to watch out. And then and with these line items, I figure in so much money of what each one is gonna take through the whole year. Okay, including like salt, sand and salt. I take the figure of how much salt that I have, that I have to order. And was it 2,250 tons of salt that I have to order. And it comes back at $69 a ton. Comes back, so I add that up. I add up the amount of sand that I have. This year I lucked out because I don't have to buy as much sand. We didn't use as much sand that I had. And so the amount of the sand is, and then also the coal patch. I get coal patch twice a year, and it's like $3,000 a piece. So therefore, that's what I use. Now, if I get any, and I've come close the last few winters, I have come close to use the whole amount of that salt. Once that salt is, that I use that amount that I asked for, I cannot get no more. So I have to be very careful how we do this.
You can't order it later in the season? You gotta plan
They
ahead.
they have a meeting, like last year, I was right close to the end, and their board down there at the salt, because I called in and ordered another load of salt, and they took a week to let me know, but they brought it. They did bring it to me. They never left me out with any salt, but that's what I'm up against.
So you said you used it all last year.
Just-
You only spent $86,000 out of that line when
No,
you
it went
budgeted
the year bef-
166.
I watered that salt, it was out of the year before that.
Okay, so the year before
And it's
that,
the same thing is gonna happen this year, is the amount of salt, I'm trying to get it on this year's budget, so when I have my next year's budget, it's gonna look like that, so I don't run out.
so I looked up the average that you've spent over since 2019 every year on salt.
Okay.
And you average that line, so sand, salt, and cold patch, you average $83,657. So.
Well, that also depends on how many snowstorms I get too. I get less snowstorms and it works back and forth. That's how it works on me. And I gotta make sure that I have enough to start with, because otherwise we're gonna be short.
Andy, I'm gonna punt this over to you. This is before my time, there was a capital reserve, expendable, some trust fund for.
Yeah, winter.
So in 2021, we established the snow and
Winter
ice
maintenance, I
winter
think.
maintenance revolving fund. So the idea at that time was so that we could average, use the average, and then if we had a snowy winter, we had the extra money to expend. The fund was created. I think we put $7,500 into the fund, which is now 10 grand, and it never got going. We need more than 10 grand in the fund in order to have a dramatic reduction in sand and salt, because you need that money to be able to have a buffer. And the money would come kind of like the school does. Any unexpended fund balance would be a warrant article to fund the fund.
Well, because I'm assuming we would have a goal for that, right? Like, we would want to get to a certain number.
Right.
Let me add one more thing too, I just thought of it. One more thing is a lot of the years, I have the same amount of miles of road, but I'm adding roads. There's things that we're adding during the snowstorm that comes up that I have to sand and salt extra. The schools, they run, a lot of times the schools will cancel out during a snowstorm, but there's a lot of times they don't. And I have to do them roads. When the school comes and run the buses, I have to run over these roads twice. When they're not out here, I only run over them once with a layer of sand and wait till the end of the storm and do them at the end of the storm. But when those school buses, that's extra salt, sand and salt that I have to.
No, I think, Wayne, I think what the
because I have to
board.
stay ahead of those school
Yeah,
buses.
I think what the board is saying is that there is that inherent variability. Some years, you're gonna be busier and using more sand and salt. Some years, you're gonna be using less. We, as we just discussed, are looking for places that we can reduce our budget. And I think what Letty is saying is that the biggest chunk of your snow and ice budget, which is just over $220,000, $170,000 of that is your sand, salt, cold patch line. And what she's saying is that you have that budgeted at $170,000, but on average, we have expended 80-something thousand a year, so only about half of that much. So I think what the board would like to think about is do we have the ability to trim the budget here by then, but also put some money into what's called the winter maintenance fund, so that if you have one of those bad years, you have
Oh.
extra funds?
Yeah, if you're gonna, well, I'll bring that up.
That's what we're thinking of
I'll
here.
bring that up. Okay, a year that I don't use the money, you're gonna put that money in a fund, so it's gonna be there when I ask.
We're gonna,
Potentially, yeah.
we're gonna
Let me-
make sure
let
that
me-
there's
let me-
money, yeah.
I run into that this year.
Yep,
With the two roads that I lost down PBD Drive
Yep.
and Pickpocket Road. When I lost those roads, I got the quote of how much it was gonna be, and I come back because I didn't have the money. And I went in the town office and I asked, I said, do you guys have the money for this year? And I showed in the town office, I showed them.
Yep.
And they told me, no, you gotta find the money to get it out of there. So they told me I have to take it out of my 350,000. I said, my 350,000 that I have in here, that's for hot topping. That's why I couldn't finish South Road. I had to stop. We almost had it done. If it been a little longer, we wouldn't have had the money. But we ended up getting help from FEMA.
right, we did.
FEMA came
Yeah, I
in
think this
and-
fund wouldn't
and that-
help you
and
for
that
road
was-
maintenance.
So I had enough money to
Yeah.
pay it off.
Speaking of hot topic, what's on tap for next year? Because I see, another.
It's always 350,000 a year, yeah.
or it looks like 380, actually.
Yeah, I would also probably bring that
No,
back
it's
to.
300, it's 350,000 is what I get for hot topping.
Looking in
Yeah.
road construction, it
And,
says
Because
380.
we had rolled
The
in.
road construction is 30,000.
That was already
So it
separate.
brings the whole total, you guys put it all in one instead of me coming in the town meeting and
Yep.
getting the vote.
So
That's
what's on
380.
what's online for hot topping?
Well, what I usually do at the end of the winter, toward the end of the winter, is I go around and check, see which roads get beat up over the winter. And then I go ahead and then I picked it out. Now, what I'm gonna be running up against within the next year, this year, and I've actually already started this year, Mill Road. A lot of people in there right now in Mill Road are starting to holler because of the condition of that road in there. And so I'm probably, and that's gonna take at least over the 350,000 just to do that whole thing of Mill Road. Because once we start Mill Road, we gotta take and change all the culverts. We got 8 culverts on that road that we're probably gonna be ending up pulling out and putting in new ones, because you don't wanna lay new hot top on culverts that are collapsing or whatever. So that it's gonna be reclaimed. We got trees down there, we gotta do to widen the road in different places. This is what we said we were gonna do before this
Sure.
development came in. And it's online of what, and about $350,000 is gonna cost the town. Now, that was back then. It's been like, what, 2 years, 3 years? Okay, so them prices are gonna be going up.
Yeah, I
So
think Wayne
we need
usually
to get
has
ready to do that.
a basic feeling at town meeting of which roads are his
Oh, yeah.
highest priority.
We're not gonna do that.
I'll tell you what.
I thought we were gonna wait until that development was done.
What's that?
Well, because there's still building over there, if we put
Yeah.
in the new road now,
I
we'll
don't wanna
destroy it.
start that. I told the new guy that's in there, I told him, we really don't wanna start that because the trucks are still running in and out of there. Then they'll stake
Yeah,
it up if we
yeah.
try to do any of that.
Can
And
we-
They understand in there.
Let's pause the conversation about roads, because I think that road line is a stable line at 380. That's not a change. And get back to the discussion of the sand salt cold patch in terms of, is this a place that we can trim the budget? And if so, how would we do that? What kind of money would we be looking to put into the fund? How would we do that? I'd like the board to kind of discuss the mechanisms of what we might do here to allow us to make a small budgetary or even a medium-sized budgetary change. Andy, I don't know if you had kind of thought through what the mechanism would look like of taking what we would do for that winter maintenance fund that's currently at 10,500. What would your thought be of what we would do this year? Sure.
I can't hear.
You have to
Yes.
speak in a microphone so John can hear you.
Joyce from the town office. A question from Wayne. The new truck, does it spread sand and salt similar to how the old trucks are spreading sand and salt? Because I know some of the newer trucks are spreading more of a slurry, which takes more salt, less sand.
The new truck has been calibrated. It was calibrated last week to put so much salt, sand and salt out. We mix our sand and salt, so they did it with for a sand and salt mix. And it's been calibrated. Now, once he gets going with that to see, I mean, he may have to turn it up or turn one way or the other. He had to make sure that he's got enough material going out on the road. So for the storm, but that has a calibration.
The new truck has different technology,
That
right?
has everything on it. Our old trucks don't have that.
Yep.
We just open up the hatch, it goes out, and it puts out.
Yep.
All depends how much. And we try to figure. We try to also figure that out when we're going down the road, because we try to get when you're going down there, you're going up the road to do one whole stretch, so we try to get it so it spreads enough to get on both sides
Sure.
of the road. Just
Yep. Okay, I'm going to turn my question back to Andy in terms of if you have a suggestion for how we might transition some of this funding in a way that might help our budgeting process.
So the biggest problem with the transition is you need the fund money before you can dramatically cut the budget.
Right.
Because you can't go into town meeting saying you're gonna cut 100,000 from the budget and then voters not approve the level you need in the revolving fund.
And I'm assuming you're not able to encumber unspent funds into an ETF?
You can, but it has to be by warrant article.
Okay, gotcha.
That's what I mean, that's what the school usually does. If they have unreserved fund balance at the end of the year, then they use it to fill their capital reserves up to, like, there's a goal number.
Yep.
And I think the gold number in that probably should be like 75.
Sure.
Gotcha. So if we were to put that in front of the voters, we couldn't then cut that money out of next year's budget until we knew with some security that that was going to be successful.
Right.
But the following year we could.
I
mean, I think you might argue we could cut this line item somewhat anyways, because the average of 80-something thousand is usually spent, and it's coming in at a $170,000 budget.
No,
So
that-
those are two separate discussions, I think.
That money that I have, and I don't use it for anything else. So if you have that amount of money in there, don't you guys get all that back for general fund at the end of the year?
We do, but we are thinking on the flip side that our budget is looking pretty heavy so if we can take it off on the front side rather than give it back later, that's going to be more appealing to the voters at town meeting. We're trying to find any place we can to tighten the budget a little bit.
It's fine with me until we use more than what we do, then I have to come back and see you guys.
I gotcha. That's why we have to make the best, smartest, educated guess.
We have a lot of other levers we can pull, in my opinion, if we're in a situation where there's an incredibly terrible winter.
We also have the Seabrook Emergency Fund that we can use for any town emergency purposes. Yeah. What, Letty, do you have so given what Andy has said, that yes, this will help our budget long-term, but not necessarily this year, so we certainly could put a warrant up to use some of this unspent money to put right into that fund for a cushion, a safety cushion for the future. With that as its own issue, what kind of numbers are you thinking, Letty? You said you pulled the average over the past 5 years?
Yeah, since 2019. I guess I would feel comfortable leaving 90 in there.
Okay. The average was, you said 80?
83, 627.
But 80 from 5 years ago is not 80.
True.
This year.
True.
You gotta.
Yeah, this year we've only spent 38,000.
But is that because we haven't bought anything yet?
Do we have purchases that are going to be made in this year's budget for salt and sand? that we haven't paid yet?
I mean, we haven't, there haven't been any
yeah,
storms yet. Sometimes there's a storm in October.
I had 2 loads come in yesterday,
Okay.
which is over $4,000.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
When does that finish up?
And that actually, that, right now, my sand and salt, salt bin, it's full. I can't put any more in it. Because I have to order it through the year. Every snowstorm, I have to order at least 2 loads of salt. It takes.
Full bin is a good bin.
And Wayne, can you remind us, do you pay for it in advance or you just reserve the total amount
Get
in
the salt,
advance?
I get the bill.
Gotcha.
Actually, it comes right to me now, the same day that I order the salt.
Yep.
They'll bring it and dump it.
Gotcha.
And I get the bill, and then that week,
Yep.
send it in and.
So last year, you know, with inflation right now only being 2-3%, much more reasonable. Last year, that line item was spent at 86,000. So, you know, Letty's suggestion of 90, might the board feel more comfortable with 100? That would still allow us to carve $70,000 out of this line item, which would be helpful for our overall budgetary purposes if the board
I
wanted
mean,
to
I
think
don't know
about
if this would
doing
make
that.
you feel better, Andy, but in 2019, the number was 57,000. And then 58,000.
We've had some pretty mild winters too.
And then 69,000, and then 90,000, 86,000, and then this year, because I mean, it's 38 this far into the year, so I guess.
What would make me feel ecstatic was if we could encumber all the salt money that he's, because he has to say he's gonna use so much. So we could get an invoice for that amount.
Because you have to tell them ahead of time how much you want, right?
Can we pay for it in advance?
That's why.
We can't pay for it, but we have a invoice saying that that is what it will be, right? That's what we have to do.
Yes.
So then when you make those payments over 2025, it'll come out of the encumbrance.
You're saying basically do that encumbrance instead of putting it into the fund for the
No,
first
both.
year?
Both.
Or both?
Do the encumbrance, because he has $336,000 left in his budget right now.
Yep. Oh, yeah, I was just thinking about that one line item, but you're right, overall.
So if we encumbered that money and then came down to like 90,000,
Yep.
he would still have plenty of money if something happened,
Mm-hmm. Right.
because it would be more like 100,000, because we have the 10,000
Yep.
in the fund.
Yep.
In the encumbrance.
And yes, and all the salt will be bought from the encumbrance.
So he'd have basically 160, he'd basically have this.
The salt's around how much a year?
How much a ton are we paying?
69, I got it right here. Wait a minute.
60 something.
I just don't remember what number we approved earlier.
It looks like a full truck is about 4,500 and a half truck is about 20.
Yeah, but I don't know how much, because we agreed to a total amount of tonnage
Right, it's like, yeah.
earlier on.
Well, it must be whatever this number generates. Or generated.
And Andy, how much money are you thinking to ask the public to put into that fund? 70, 60, 70,000?
60.
60?
I mean, we could even go 50.
The salt price is $155,250.
So if we encumber that amount, minus what he's already got, because he just got 2 truckloads.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, this is for 2,250 tons of salt.
But if the salt price is 150,000, but last year we only expended 80-something thousand, and this year we only expended 30,000, that's sort of the maximum possible number we could pay for the salt?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
which we're very unlikely to hit, is what I'm hearing.
I have to buy the salt after every storm.
Yeah.
It don't,
Yep.
it all don't
Yeah, yeah.
come, it don't come, we don't have room.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
all
You
salt.
have to like,
Yeah.
basically you have to reserve all the salt we're gonna need for the whole season. ahead
Right.
of time.
Yeah,
Ahead of
exactly.
time,
And then you only
then
pay for what you use.
what
Exactly.
you use
Mhm.
through the winter.
But we don't even come close to hitting that number. We haven't in the past 5 years.
So that would work for an encumbrance then. And then if it doesn't end up getting used, then it just goes back to taxpayers anyway.
Yes.
And
So I'm hearing, put the warrant forward to fund that ETF for 50 to 60K, encumber the 150 or the
No.
150 minus what we've already paid?
uh,
We can talk about the
yeah, we
encumber
can
number
figure that out
later.
later.
So I guess the number we really need to decide on tonight as a board is what do we want to lower that 680 line to? It's currently at 170. What is the board, if you're comfortable lowering that to allow us to tighten our budget a little bit
I was thinking taking out 80,000,
and put it down to 90?
90, whatever, 625 or whatever.
There's gonna be a fund with, what'd you say, a target of 75?
If you put 50 to 60 in it, it'll have,
I would do
Yeah.
50 this year.
As long as the taxpayers vote for it, which
The-
I think we will explain greatly why.
yeah, it
we're
helps,
doing
it helps tighten our budget over multiple years.
But the encumbrance is what gives you the leeway.
Can you explain that to me, how that works?
So you're actually paying 2025 bills with 2024 money.
He has extra room in his budget.
Maybe the difference between this 181 and the 38?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the 180, what, yeah, yes.
Okay.
But the 38's going up.
Or the total bottom line.
Because he's bought,
number.
Like $4,000 more.
right.
Right.
But we have extra money because he didn't have to buy sand this year.
So does dropping that budget to 90 feel adequate to you?
I would support that.
That would allow us to cut $80,000 out of our budget, which would certainly be helpful. Okay, so we have a suggestion to think about modifying that line down to 90.
It's in conjunction with this encumbrance of how much?
100.
Yes, whatever, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, usually you do those a little bit later in the season.
It would be whatever he's, so.
Sounds like it's been his fault.
He's allotted so much salt. So if we have
He reserved.
3 storms in December and he has to get 4 more trucks, he would use that allotted salt supply, so we'd have to encumber less. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
He uses,
If he ends up using up some of the money in the next 6 weeks, we'll encumber less because he'll already have spent it. Yeah, I think that's what Andy's saying. Okay, so that line item, we were talking about making a trim. There's obviously a lot of other line items in this budget. And I don't know if anybody has questions for Wayne about these other changes. A lot of this is level funded, but there are some changes in here. Does anybody have questions about that?
didn't you want to go back to the road?
Did.
Well, can we, so snow and ice is a separate budget, so I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, we could do that one first since that's the one we've been spending this time talking about.
Sure.
So snow and ice, we have some seasonal wage increases in there. We have the associated FICA Medicare, and that's really the only change. Wayne had already planned to drop that line. We were just talking about by 10,000, but now we're talking about dropping it by another approximately 80,000. So if we just did a clean,
And do you understand what I was saying, Wayne, how we were gonna, even though we're dropping you 80,000, we're still using, you're still gonna have enough money for salt.
you're still gonna have your salts.
Okay.
Nobody's
Long-
taking
I-
away
yeah,
your salt.
As long as the salt money there, because, I mean, I call up and we don't pay it in a certain time or whatever, we ain't gonna get no more salt.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we get you.
It's
Don't
gonna
you
be
worry.
bad.
We're not gonna leave the roads unsafe. We're just trying to, your budget tends to have more wiggle room in it
I am-
because.
More variability.
Because it plans for variability. We're talking about, is there a slightly more economical way for us to cover
To
you
cover the-
that
cover-
wouldn't have as
That's
much of a
fine.
hit to the taxpayers?
I have nothing to do with that.
Yep.
I don't care.
Yep.
You're gonna be able to buy salt.
Long as we have coverage here.
Yep. So the budget that we have in front of us is just off by maybe $1 from the one that you printed out for us. So if we're using the one that Wayne actually presented to us, it was just slightly
I mean, it's probably a
different.
rounding error.
So that was the 222,410. So if we're talking about taking $80,000 out of that, then it's 142,410. Does anybody have any other suggestions or changes that they would want to see to that budget?
Now, the line item on road.
Not on that one.
Oh,
We're gonna do your
sand and salt.
snow and
We're gonna do
ice
the
first.
snow one, and then
Oh,
we'll
you
talk
said-
about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't you worry.
So we've got
gonna
just
forget.
regular seasonal COLA, wage adjustments, and then we've got this change we just talked about. Anyone else have questions or comments about this budget?
Can I move it?
You sure
At the
can.
142,410?
Yep. We have a motion for the 142,410 for snow and ice. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John? Aye. Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that part of the budget will pass, and then we'll turn over to the other part
Now
of
you
your
can tell me about
budget,
the roads.
which is the public works, the highway subset. And that also is just a little bit different by just a couple dollars from what's on our draft one here and what Wayne presented. His is 834,501, but they're very similar. And so, Wayne, I don't know if you want to speak to this. We have some salary adjustments, some mowing adjustments. We're going down a little bit in retirement. Maybe you can explain that. Some uniform adjustments, but a lot of this budget is level funded. So your this total budget that you've suggested is only up just about 2% from last year, which is nice to see that pretty level funded.
Okay, on the on the salary now, I have an application for a full-timer. For a full-timer that I have, but I couldn't say that I can hire the guy because I don't have any money in there to take care of a full-time position. So that's what I wanted to, you guys got a, I think, is this it right here?
So that's not in this.
That's not.
It's not in your budget.
It's not in this budget.
Okay.
This is.
Yeah, I have that.
I think you guys have.
Yeah, we do.
Now, I didn't know if you wanted to do this for this year or you want to wait till next year. Because I think we talked about this one time and we said we'd wait till next year because I was gonna try to get some, full part-timers to come in and drive. Like last year, I put it out, I have four seasonal guys.
Oh, nice.
I have 4 seasonal guys and I only got 1 last year.
Okay.
So there was only 4 of us out there plowing all
Yeah.
last year. And
So can I ask it back to you, given that we're trying to tighten our budget wherever we can to help our fire department survive?
well,
Could you wait a year?
I've got some, I've got some applications out with part-time guys that want to come in, but I
Okay.
haven't got them back yet. I don't
Okay.
know if they'll come
Could we do
forward.
the same thing? Just
But,
put it to the voters?
I mean, that's a separate discussion during warrant time, sure, but it's not in his budget, so we don't have to make that change
Yeah.
tonight.
Right.
But the, what I was gonna say is long as I have 4 drivers, we got 4 big trucks.
Yep.
4 big trucks. I feel safe out there
Okay.
with the 4 big trucks.
Yep.
We can handle pretty much what we got. The only biggest thing we got is the, coming for us for this year is 3 ponds.
Yep.
That first section.
Yep.
And that's on my own route, so
Okay.
I'll end up taking care of that.
So am I hearing you say that our seasonal work is looking a lot better this year, and that makes you feel more comfortable that maybe we could wait
Well,
on
that's if.
a
we get 'em.
full-timer?
That's if we get them.
Okay, but you're feeling a little more
I've
optimistic?
been hoping that, usually there's guys that will come in and, they come back to work or
Yeah.
whatever, and during the winter, hey, do you need help plowing?
Yeah.
But we have the trucks,
Okay.
and if it works.
But would that be true that if we get some good seasonal part-timers, it would?
Well, I'll be fine.
You'll be fine, okay.
Well, but then that would end in March. Like by the time town meeting comes around, then do you just need another person full-time? Not just for plowing?
Yeah, yeah, right. The more roads we're gonna get, we're gonna need more, because we gotta do a lot more stuff. We have to add, plus us guys are getting older in there, so
Sure.
it's,
Sure, but you would feel comfortable, given that we're trying to tighten the budget where we can, to hold off on this full-time position another year?
for this year?
Yeah.
I'm fine. with
You'd be
it.
okay with that? Okay.
But I just.
I'd like
but
to revisit
I
it
haven't,
during
I
work.
haven't approached the guy that I have the application, but I can, I'll go ask him on see that, I tell him I don't have the money for it. That
Yeah.
wait another year.
Okay.
Unless he wants to work part-time.
Okay.
Until,
Okay.
He can help us out that way.
Sure, and you can get to know him. Okay.
Fine.
Okay. Can you, I was a little bit confused when I looked at this in terms of your, salary line goes up a little bit, your mowing, or the salary line goes up, but the retirement went down? What, am I missing something there?
that might have been a mistake.
That might be a math error? Okay. So we can look at that. Okay. Okay, fine. Yep, just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing that somebody was like not getting retirement, or some change was somebody was cutting their hours or something. Okay, so we probably need to make just a small math correction on here.
Now, on the salaries up here, what I did the same thing as I did last year. I
Mhm.
went 5%, 3% COLA, and then 2%. But you guys do whatever you want. We got.
Yeah, I had talked to her about that we'll adjust
all my
that.
guys are all set.
Yep.
Got the notice.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And uniforms, you put up a little bit. That's something you feel like you need to increase?
Uniforms, yep, I get that.
Okay.
Sounds like cleaning
That
costs
went
have
up.
gone up.
The uniforms, when we first started, was $86.72 per person. Now it's $95.82 per
Okay.
person.
Wow, okay. Okay. Overall, it looks like we do need to probably correct that retirement line. Would the board like to just table this
Yes.
unless there's other major
Well,
changes
I
that we would
wanna
like
ask
to make?
about road
Okay,
paving.
go ahead. Ask your question about road paving.
Why haven't you spent all that money yet this year?
Where?
The road paving construction, right? Do you have the,
318,952 is
Yeah.
the,
are you gonna spend more money
Oh,
on roads?
I'm gonna spend more
Okay.
money. That line item that,
the 730 line.
I didn't tell you yet, I don't think. Where is that? Road construction.
Do you have road construction projects in the next 6 weeks that are going to use up some more of that budget?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay,
That's all I wanted to
That's all she
confirm.
wanted to know.
That's all I wanted to make sure.
Usually he spends every dollar of that.
That's it. Is that where that's coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah, traditionally he spent, which is why we moved that into the budget, because as the fiduciary agents of the town, paving roads is really not optional.
Super
And
important.
shouldn't be an
Yep.
optional
Yep.
extra item for the voters. It's fundamental
right
to
here.
town function.
Yeah.
So we moved it into the budget.
Because I actually on the road construction, I had 380,000 in
Yep.
there. I have now 61,047.92.
Mhm.
And I've got to do both shoulders on that road.
Okay.
I don't know how much gravel we don't know how much gravel we're gonna do.
Yep.
doing it.
So you anticipate spending
Probably gonna take
that.
most of that.
So I guess the only other thing that I'll point out is that if you have, as you get close to the end of the year, if you have money left over in a line, and so you need to overspend a different one, then you can do that as long as that bottom line number doesn't,
Okay.
right?
Yes, correct.
Well,
As long as he doesn't go over his budget, he can come to us and let us know what's
long as I
going
don't
on
go
with his
over,
budget.
yeah, I know what you mean.
What is it, like the $5,000 or whatever? Isn't there some threshold that the board has historically used? For?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I got some of these line items now, if you look at them, they're getting down close.
But that's okay.
But,
Yep, that's fine.
yeah, but
Yeah.
if I have it, what I do is I just add it on that, whatever, like uniforms or something like that, I would just still add it in uniforms, it's gonna
Yep.
bring it up.
Yeah, that's fine.
And as long as I don't go over my bottom,
Yep.
I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do any board members have, oh, go ahead, Paul.
Well, no, I just get back to me on the gravel. That's a big one.
He wants it
Yeah,
up.
the gravel, yeah.
Yeah.
I move we table this budget.
Great. Any other major big questions? Because we could do the same thing with rec. We'll just correct the
I
math.
think just correcting
And
the
we
math.
can approve it. This is a minimal increased budget.
Yep.
Great. And we then did cut the other budget. Perfect. Okay, so we will table this. We have a motion from Andy to table.
Second.
I'm not sure we actually motioned on rec to do it officially, but that's okay. Letty, second?
Sure.
Okay. Roll call vote, Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we will table this just to make that math correction, and then we will approve it. And we will approve your whole combined budget with just that one big modification that we talked about. So if you can work to get that math corrected, we will approve that probably next week really quickly.
Mhm.
Okay? Thank
And
you.
actually, similarly, I don't think he needs to come back.
No, not necessarily. We just need the piece of paper.
We just need the piece of paper, so if you just
Yep.
email it to us. Unless you want to come hang out.
Probably not. It's 9 o'clock. He wants to go to bed. Come on.
Don't we?
I want to go to bed.
I'm looking at Jillian's blanket and I'm like, okay.
All right, so we tabled that one. Did we ever officially table rec?
We didn't.
I think we got so tied up and everything. So let's take
I make a motion
a
that we
retroactive.
table the rec budget until the corrections are made.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we will officially table rec after the fact. And then.
Still counts.
It still counts. Let's try, ZBA statement of interest should be really quick. We have it at the back of our pack. So Wayne Morrill has applied to be on ZBA. There were some conversations that occurred offline about the fact that Wayne is a civil engineer that works for Jones and Beach. And so there was a question about how it would be handled if there was a conflict.
I can
of
speak to that
interest.
in terms of, because I'm the
Thanks,
person on
Wayne.
the.
Thank you, Wayne.
On the planning board.
you.
So we have other people on the planning board that work in the industry,
Yep.
and if their company is working on that project, then they will just recuse themselves.
Correct. That was
So
exactly what I was going to say.
There is
that
no concern.
It is thought that this would be an easy recusal. If there's anything from his company in front of the board, he would recuse himself.
He would know ahead of time because by the time it gets to the ZBA, it's already been through the planning.
Correct. Correct. And he's interested, he's got a good skill set, and we have very much been looking for interested people to be on the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And I did talk to Mark Kennedy, who thought that Wayne would be a good addition to this board. So if the board has any questions about this, he's obviously not here tonight, and I'm glad he's not, because he would have sat through a 3-hour meeting. Is the board interested in appointing Mr. Morrill onto the ZBA?
Sure.
Sure. Would someone like to make a motion?
Do you have a term date? So we can
Great
align them?
question. What did we do before? Do you remember?
I think it depends if he's replacing Ken or if he's just filling a
Because we've
spot.
had, but we had open slots,
Yeah.
right?
Selected as new.
I don't think
No, he's a
so.
full.
Because we have Doug,
Because
we
we were
had
down-
Doug,
we were
Ken,
down.
yeah. And then we had Regan Elliott and Frank Albert. Are they still both on it? So, and Ken's term was up in 2024. So he would have been up anyways, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not sure how many years. I think is it 3 years? You know, you want to go check just to double check? Because if we put him in Ken's position, we could do it for the full term because Ken was going to be up this year anyways.
Oh, that would work out nice.
Yeah, so it would be perfect to just slide him in there.
Selected as new on
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's 3, in which case he would be 2027. Yeah, we do that
Do we
summer.
actually have to say what it is? to
I
approve
think we
him?
should say the term. Yeah, we generally try to pick the term because then we have to sign the appointment.
Got to be on his appointment slip, so.
I
Yeah. I want to say it's 3, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So, yeah. So while we're waiting for Jillian to bring that back to us. Andy, do you want to talk briefly about Casella, next steps?
No, because she won't be here to take notes.
True. Okay. Can you talk about it in a non-note taking, or we can catch her up when she's back? It is
She can watch the video.
9:05.
She can watch the
It
video.
is 9:05.
So I talked to Brian from Casella today. He's gonna give me two different scenarios of renewing the trash contract with a June automation start date and a September automation start date.
Okay.
I kind of asked him if he was interested in just doing a 3-month extension, and that's when he posed this to us. So
So it
we as a board have to decide if, there's no way we can do an RFP in 6 weeks. So if we just re-sign with Casella for 5 years, we'll have to, he'll give me the breakdown of what the contract would look like.
And that would be for how long? That contract?
5.
We've been doing them for 5 years.
And essentially, the automation transition would be baked into that contract. It's just the start date would be variable.
Right.
Okay.
Can you remind me why we were considering the September start date or the 3-month delay or whatever?
Because there was no way we can transition to automation without a town administrator.
There's a lot of legwork and public outreach, right?
Yeah, and winter's just not a good time to try to change
Yeah.
the way we do trash.
And how long does the transition take? Has he shared that?
We haven't had that discussion, but I would assume we have to figure out how many residents we have in town, how many residents will need extra
How many
barrels.
households? Not residents.
Correct, households. How many households will need extra barrels? Everybody got the message from Rebecca Dunham, and I think it's a good idea that we offer smaller barrels to people that don't think they'll need a 90-gallon.
Right.
Or do we just offer smaller barrels in general with the understanding that some people are going to need more?
That's what we'll have to
I think,
figure out.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think most households are gonna need a 90-gallon. If you go with the 5-bag limit,
There's
is
8
what we're supposed to be at.
bag, right? Wasn't it 8? 8. I think it's 8.
But there's
Yeah.
5 that fit in that bigger.
No. That, the 90-gallon would fit whatever our 8-bag limit
Right.
is. 90-gallon is huge.
That's
Yeah.
excessive.
Yeah.
So would the next one
pretty
down be more like 4?
No, it was like 60 gallons. It was like a little bit bigger than
Yeah.
a standard
But
trash
yes,
can. We can talk about
we
those
can
details.
figure that out later.
Yeah. Did those details affect our contract price or no? The size of barrel that we choose, it potentially
I'm sure it will.
does. So that would be the one wrinkle, is if we need some time to figure out those details, do we have to sign a contract before we really understand what size barrels we want to use as our default?
Well, I think the contract will be written with the 90s, so if we downgrade, then it'll be less.
We would adjust it.
Well, but we don't pay for it either, right?
It's built into the cost
It's
of the
probably built
contract.
in. It might be a
Okay.
different contract.
That's why they're gonna wanna do
I-
5 years, because they're not gonna wanna spend how many ever tens of thousands of dollars on barrels and.
Right.
Janice has a question. You have to
John
come
had
to
a question for us.
John, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say I don't think we should delay anything because of the size of the barrels or anything like that. Like that's gonna be negligible at the end of the day. But I now understand the September thing. Thank you for that.
Yep.
So my question is pretty simple, but I just wondered, like, how does this affect the library and other places that use
Dumpsters?
the
I
dumpsters? Yeah.
expect it would not.
It wouldn't.
I don't think it
So
would.
there's no
It's
impact.
household.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Household. So maybe we can, I mean, I think in general, the public has mixed feelings, right? People struggle with change. We know that about humans. I think we need this board to really decide what we're gonna do moving forward. I think our hands are somewhat tied by the lateness of the hour, not tonight, but in general, that, we really, you know, yeah, tonight too, that staying with Casella is really in our best interest because we don't have time. And so I think that this board needs to maybe formally make that decision that we want to stay with Casella and that we are comfortable with a contract that is going to mandate automation, because it sounds like that's what's in front of us that we need to accept.
I think no matter where we go, people are gonna want automation.
Yeah, I think so too.
If you drive through Kingston and Fremont, they use Waste Management
Yeah.
and they have automated barrels.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
just,
It's
the job market, you can't find two people to get on a truck and be the insurance to have somebody ride on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
It's just so
Mhm.
expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the new age trash,
So is it more about
safety and
saying-
efficiency.
saying that we're good with moving forward and we can hash out the details of bin sizes and when the transfer happens later?
When do we need to
Yes.
sign the contract? By December 31st?
Yes.
Okay. So would you like some general support from the board for us to move forward with that?
Yes.
Paul?
Yeah, and remind me just the cost. Was this?
It was a $25,000 savings likely
I-
to go to the automated contract.
I don't have the numbers in
He
front of me
quoted us
anymore.
At that, when he came to our meeting.
Right.
A little bit less expensive to go automated because of the lack of manpower.
From the
and insurance.
previous
From our
5-year
existing contract was what he originally quoted us in that ballpark.
And there's gonna be an increase because obviously we're in a 5-year contract
Sure.
before, and the escalators didn't keep up with the economy.
Right, so we don't know what the actual numbers look like, but essentially they charge $25,000 less for their automated services compared to their manned services right now.
Right.
It might
We
not be
should-
$25,000 less than our 5 years ago
Well,
contract.
right.
Yeah.
So we should get that.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
We are getting that. He gave the numbers last week. I just don't have them with me anymore.
And it sounds like this isn't so much a decision for the board as just an acknowledgement that this is the direction that we're gonna need to go. We don't have.
Well, I think at this point, we have to commit whether
Yeah.
we're gonna try to bid this or stay with Casella and.
I'm certainly comfortable staying with Casella at this point.
Are you looking for a motion, Andy?
Yes.
I move that we acknowledge that we are going to be moving in the direction of automation and sticking with Casella.
Yeah, I would just add to that with the September and with the caveat that the numbers are not crazy that we're gonna see. Because I don't know
Sure,
if
we've
they
got to
are.
get the contract from them. Yeah. This is to allow Andy to move forward with, contracting discussions with them and then bring it to us.
Yeah, as long as we have that.
Yep. So we have a motion from John. Anyone want a second?
Second.
And we have a second. We'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll move forward with those discussions, and Andy will bring that to us at a future meeting.
So last year's waste collection was 31,833. So
The collection is different from.
From
there's like
landfill fees.
many
Yeah, there's
different
multiple
letter-
different
li-
lines that add up.
But that's the Casella contract,
Yep.
and then the second was what we pay where our trash goes.
Yeah. All right. So we will now move on to regular board business. Just a few quick things that we have here. One is just to let the public know, if anybody's still with us, that on November 23rd from 10 to 1 at the Exeter Bandstand, the Exeter senior class is doing electronics recycling. So that will accept electronics, appliances, and other household items. And you can look up on the web the list of acceptable items, or there's a QR code that you can look at. So just to remind folks that is coming up on the 23rd. We have in front of us here a communication from Dragon Mosquito Control. Every year they need to do a special permit with the state to allow them to do their work. And they, by email, are requesting that, as in previous years, that we sign the end of the application. Dragon fills out the rest of the application for us and then submits it. They state here that it can take up to 120 days to complete the approval process, so they would like us to get started so that we will be ready to go promptly in April. This is the standard process, so it's a special permit that goes to the New Hampshire Division of Pesticide Control. It's completely filled out by Dragon, and there is just a place on page 6 that I can sign on behalf of the board, and we are signing to say that we agree that the information on this application is true and not falsified, so that we can apply for this permit.
I move we allow the chair to sign the permit.
We've got a motion for this. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll ask my question.
Do you have a question about this specifically? Is it specifically about this document? Okay, then you should ask it.
Well, I can ask it during discussion after.
Okay, so someone second, please.
I can second it.
Okay, now ask your question.
Okay, is it to do the testing that they do, or is it to put spray?
I think it's to do like the larvicidal thing. We don't spray in Brentwood, but
could you
we treat.
just tell me what the name of the thing is?
The name of the thing?
What are they getting permission to put? Sorry,
Well,
I'm losing words.
We don't normally spray in Brentwood, but we could spray
think we-
should we need to.
Yeah, I think it's mostly treatment of like larvicidal pools, and they put like the pellet stuff in it. What is it called?
I can look. I'm assuming it's somewhere.
It's in the reports we get from Dragon that are in the mail. It lists everything that they do. They're these big fat reports. I'm sure you've put your initials at the top of them. So that is not in this, I do not believe, because it's probably, I think it's going to be filled out. Application methods for adulticiding, larviciding. Would it make a difference to you?
I don't think we should sign something if we don't know what we're signing.
It's the same chemicals they use every single year.
I understand.
So duly noted.
That's
Okay,
fine, yeah.
so we have a motion and a second on the table. We'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Who seconded?
I did.
Letty did.
Oh, okay. Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Nay.
Okay, you seconded and then Nate.
I seconded it, so it
I'm an
counts.
aye, so we will sign this on 11/19. And then the last thing I'm gonna bump to a future meeting is Kip did provide me with information about rec windows, and we will bump that because there is no need for us to discuss that right at this moment. We will quickly do any other board business, and then we need to go into a brief non-public for legal. So we'll start with Andy for board business.
I'm gonna pass.
Sounds like a
I
good
had
idea.
stuff, but I'll pass.
Yes, wonderful.
I agree.
John, anything crucial to bring
Yeah.
forward?
Nope.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Paul?
I'll defer until next.
Wonderful. Letty?
Really quickly, we are in the middle of open enrollment for insurance. I'm getting good replies. I'm going to be able to hopefully come with that budget when I'm supposed to. The only thing that I'm going to say is that this has come up at budget committee and this committee before. The idea of having the town produce some information for people when it comes to a variety of things, just improving how we communicate officially from the town to the taxpayers. And
Like a voter companion guide, right?
or like other, yes.
Yeah, something along those lines.
And so I want to form a little committee to do that, to try that out.
Of town volunteers?
Yep. I want to post kind of the request for people maybe tomorrow and close interest in 2 weeks.
And that would be kind of an unofficial subcommittee, so we wouldn't
Sure.
have to go through the official
Sure.
processes.
I mostly just want to get all the people that sometimes say that things aren't as transparent as they'd like.
Sure.
And so figuring out like which things we need to say in which way so that people feel
Yep.
like it is transparent.
Yep.
And yes, so I guess I'm letting you know that I'm going to post that we're looking for people to join. And I'm guessing it'll just go through, I don't know, February.
Okay. All right. Are you looking for a motion to create that
I don't know, do we
subcommittee?
need one?
I mean, if it's if it's sort of a loose temporary volunteer group, I'm not sure we necessarily do.
I mean,
Is
if
the
it
board,
goes-
is anyone on the board opposed to Letty moving forward with getting some interested people from the public to work on this?
If it goes really well, then maybe we could
Sure.
consider making it permanent,
Great.
but I feel like this is
I'm not hearing any dissent from the
great.
board.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
I'm all done.
Wonderful.
There's probably other things. but-
Okay. I will take a motion to go into non-public for legal. And
Second.
that's at 9:20. We'll take a roll call vote. Andy? John?
Aye.
Paul?
Is that Dexter still here?
Yeah.
Yep.
Dexter, I thought that I had sent you an email before I left for this trip, and I just looked and did not. I just sent it to you now, so we will be in touch as soon as I get back home, so we can schedule our time together.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. All right, so we will go into non-public for legal. Did everyone vote? Did I vote? Aye. I vote aye as well for roll call vote. So we'll go into non-public at 9:21. And we will excuse our two people. Hi, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Ambrose.